takes real work.
It really is a huge family structure. Dee, walk us through their blended family tree for anyone who is just tuning in with us late tonight.
Of course, Rachel. Kourtney shares 3 children with her ex-partner Scott Disick, Mason, Penelope, and Rain. Travis has 2 children from his marriage to ex-wife Shanna Moakler, Landon and Alabama. He is also extremely close with his former stepdaughter, Atiana De La Hoya. Then, in November 2023, after undergoing multiple rounds of IVF treatments, Kourtney and Travis welcomed their first child together, a son named Rocky 13 Barker. So that makes 6 children total across their household.
For those of you watching live at home right now, how do you handle disagreements before bed? Do you need to settle everything before turning the lights off like Kourtney and Travis? Or do you prefer to sleep on it and talk in the morning? Drop your thoughts in the live chat right now.
I think sleeping on it is severely underrated, Rachel. Sometimes people are just tired and cranky. But you have to look at the foundation of their relationship. They did not just meet yesterday. They were close friends and neighbors in Calabasas for years, before anything ever turned romantic.
That is right, Bianca. Before they began dating in early 2021, they were workout buddies.
Many times they actually celebrated tying the knot.
They had 3 separate ceremonies in 2022. Rachel, first was an unofficial middle-of-the-night ceremony in Las Vegas at 2 in the morning in April, right after the Grammy Awards. Then, in May, they officially made it legal at a clerk's office in Santa Barbara, California. And finally, later that month, they held an extravagant celebration in Portofino, Italy.
Ah, the Italian wedding! That was an incredible fashion moment.
It took place at Villa Olivetta, an estate owned by Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana, set on a hilltop overlooking the Mediterranean. Kourtney wore a custom Dolce & Gabbana Alta Moda lace and satin corset mini dress inspired by 1960s Italian lingerie. Her massive, sweeping veil was hand-embroidered with flowers, an image of the Virgin Mary, and the words family, loyalty, respect, which was actually inspired by one of Travis's head tattoos.
That detail about his tattoo being hand-stitched into her veil was so personal. It brought together his pop-punk identity and her classic glamorous style.
It was the ultimate punk rock meets luxury moment. But looking at Travis's life overall, he has survived so much long before this current era. His mother bought him his first drum kit when he was 4 years old. He joined Blink-182 back in 1998, became one of the most famous drummers of the new millennium, and then survived that terrifying plane crash in 2008, where he suffered severe burns. When someone has been through that level of survival, their perspective on life and relationships becomes much deeper.
That is so true, Bianca. Surviving a life-altering tragedy like that really shifts what you value, which explains why he prioritizes clear communication and resolving conflict right away.
It really explains his emphasis on taking immediate accountability. In his view, admitting a quick mistake, like forgetting to reply about lunch, keeps resentment from taking root over time.
If you are watching us live right now, we want to know, did you have a fast courthouse wedding, a wild trip, or a big destination event like their Portofino celebration? Let us know in the comments below.
What amuses me is the wild contrast here. You have a couple that had a 2 in the morning Vegas ceremony, a massive Italian estate wedding, owns tens of millions of dollars in California real estate, yet their major core secret to a 4-year marriage is talking through a delayed text message.
Isn't that what real life usually comes down to, though, Bianca? It is rarely about the big dramatic movie scenes. It is about the tiny daily miscommunications that stack up if you do not address them.
Sure, Dee, but talking through every minor miscommunication before bed is a lot easier when you can step out onto a balcony overlooking a pool and a tennis court to take a breath. For a normal couple with work early in the morning, hashing out every single missed text before sleeping sounds like a recipe for sleep deprivation.
Well, Travis did clarify that they try never to go to sleep mad, meaning it is an intentional habit rather than something they achieve perfectly every single night. He admitted that knowing when to give each other physical space in the house is just as crucial to their balance.
Which really raises the question of how couples navigate that fine line between forcing an immediate resolution at 2 in the morning and knowing when to pause.
Exactly, Rachel, because forcing a full relationship deep dive at 2 in the morning over a missed lunch text Sounds like absolute torture if you have to function the next day. But let us be honest. Taking space is a lot easier when taking space means walking into one of your 7 bedrooms or heading over to your private home theater.
That spatial balance is a massive factor here, Bianca. For anyone just joining our late-night broadcast, Travis and Kourtney are currently living together in Travis's Mediterranean-style estate in Calabasas, which he bought back in 2007 for $9,500,000. We are talking about 9,250 square feet, with a game room, a wine cellar, a gym, a pool, a spa, and even a tennis court.
Indeed, that is not even their only property in that same exclusive gated community, right?
Not at all, Rachel. Kourtney has her own mansion just down the road, an 11,700 square foot property that she bought for $7,450,000 back in 2014. Right now, her house is undergoing a massive renovation so it can properly accommodate their entire blended family, which Kourtney actually talked about on her family's reality show in 2025.
See, that puts a completely different spin on resolving arguments before bed. When you have 2 massive multi-million-dollar compounds in the exact same neighborhood, stepping away to clear your head does not mean sitting awkwardly on the living room sofa. You can literally walk out the front door, cross the street, or lounge in your own gym or wine cellar until you are ready to say, "Babe, I take accountability."
It certainly offers options. But what makes this dynamic so fascinating is that long before they were living under one roof or navigating renovations, Travis and Kourtney were actually close friends and neighbors for years.
They really built this foundation over time. Before things turned romantic in early 2021, they were close workout buddies. Travis mentioned that they used to run together and train together constantly, which he credited as a huge reason they became so close in the first place, sharing that same passion for wellness.
Which makes the speed of everything that followed even wilder. They go from casual running partners to hard launching their romance right after Valentine's Day in 2021. And then by October of that same year, Travis is getting down on one knee on a beach in Montecito, California.
And the wedding celebration was not just a single weekend event either. They had 3 separate ceremonies in 2022. First was that unannounced 2 in the morning ceremony in Las Vegas in April, right after an award show, though they did not have a marriage license for that one. Then in May, they made it legally binding at a courthouse in Santa Barbara, California.
And then came the giant celebration in Italy that had everyone talking for weeks.
Exactly, Rachel. Later that same May, they flew their loved ones out to Portofino, Italy, for an extravagant ceremony at Villa Olivetta, which is the hilltop estate owned by Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana. Kourtney wore a custom Dolce & Gabbana Alta Moda lace and satin corset mini dress inspired by 1960s Italian lingerie. Her veil was enormous, hand-embroidered with flowers and an image of the Virgin Mary, along with the words family, loyalty, respect, which actually matches one of the tattoos Travis has on his head.
Look, say what you will about the drama or having 3 separate weddings, but you cannot deny that they leaned all the way into their aesthetic. But let us talk about the household itself, because running a home with that many kids involved takes serious coordination, rule or no rule.
It is a massive household, Bianca. Together, they have a blended family of 6 children. Kourtney shares 3 kids with her former partner Scott Disick, their sons Mason and Rain, and their daughter Penelope. Travis has 2 children from his marriage to ex-wife Shanna Moakler, his son Landon and daughter Alabama, and he remains very close with his former stepdaughter, Atiana de la Hoya.
Plus, of course, their youngest addition to the family.
Right, Rachel. In November 2023, on the 1st of the month, they welcomed their son, Rocky 13 Barker, at Cedars Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. That came after they went through multiple rounds of fertility treatments together to conceive, so adding baby Rocky to the mix really completed this whole new chapter for them.
So imagine managing 6 kids, co-parenting schedules across multiple exes, a massive house renovation, and a global touring schedule with Blink 182, and still insisting on resolving every missed text before hitting the pillow.
That brings up a great question for everyone watching along with us right now. If you are sitting up late tonight, pop into our show chat. Do you think Travis's rule of never going to sleep mad is the ultimate secret to relationship longevity? Or is stepping back and sleeping on it sometimes the healthier choice?
I am team sleep on it. If it is 2 in the afternoon and my partner forgets to text me back about lunch, I am not holding a tribunal at 2 in the morning over it. Travis says the issue can be as simple as saying, "Hey, I thought you were meeting me for lunch and you did not text back, so I was not sure." If my partner wakes me up to resolve a missed lunch text, we are going to have a much bigger argument than the text itself.
But what Travis highlighted was accountability, Bianca. He said the response is just as simple like, "Oh, babe, I take accountability. I am sorry, I did not see your text right away." His point was that leaving those tiny micro-annoyances unaddressed is what causes couples to drift apart and stop feeling connected when they go to sleep.
And Travis is 50 years old now, with a whole lifetime of intense personal experiences that shape how he views connection and family. He joined Blink-182 back in 1998, but his mother actually bought him his very first drum kit when he was just 4 years old and encouraged him to pursue music.
And he has been through life-altering trauma as well. Back in 2008, Travis survived a horrific plane crash where he suffered severe burn injuries. He fought his way through recovery, went on to release solo music in 2011, and continued releasing major albums with his band, including their 2016 and 2023 records. So when someone who has faced that level of mortality talks about the importance of staying connected with the people you love before you close your eyes at night, it comes from a very deep place.
Okay, I can respect the sentiment behind it, Dee. Experiencing something that tragic certainly gives you perspective on not taking your partner for granted. But practically speaking, for the average person who does not have 9,000 square feet to retreat to when discussions get heated, applying that strict never sleep mad policy can get tricky fast.
Which brings us right back to how they balance that emotional role with physical space. Dee, when Travis was talking about taking space inside their house, how does that actually play out during an argument?
Well, Travis explained that while their priority is always to talk things through so they do not fall asleep mad, he acknowledged that knowing when to give each other physical space in the house is just as crucial to keeping their balance intact.
Exactly! So it is not magic, it is spatial separation. They clear their heads in separate wings of a Mediterranean estate, gather their thoughts, and then come back to apologize.
But Bianca, isn't that taking accountability in its own way? Knowing when you need 10 minutes in another room before you say something you regret?
Sure, if both people actually come back to resolve it. But what happens when one person wants to talk it out right now at midnight, and the other person is completely exhausted and just wants to turn the lights off?
And that is where the communication breakdown usually happens. Because if one person is chasing a resolution at 2 in the morning just to clear their own conscience, while the other person...
And that brings us right back to how they built this whole dynamic in the first place. Because Dee, before they were ever a couple, they spent years as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas, right?
Exactly, Rachel. They shared that foundational love for wellness long before romance entered the picture, running together and working out, which really laid the groundwork for how they communicate now.
Well, working out together is one thing, but let us be real. Trying to hash out why someone did not text you back about lunch when it is midnight and you are exhausted sounds like a recipe for a midnight disaster.
Bianca, you are forgetting the accountability part. When Travis says, "Oh babe, I take accountability, I am sorry," that diffuses the whole thing right there on the spot.
Sure, if both people are actually awake enough to process an apology. But let us see what our viewers think about this late night rule. Because we just got a message coming in right now. This is Sarah from Denver, and I just have to say, if my husband tried to discuss missed text messages at 2 in the morning, I would sleep on the kitchen floor. How do they even have the energy after a full day with a blended family of 6 kids? Bless you, Sarah from Denver, because you are speaking absolute truth. That is exactly what I am saying.
But Sarah, remember they have that massive 9,000 square foot Mediterranean estate in Calabasas, plus Kourtney's property undergoing renovations just down the street. They actually have room to escape each other when midnight negotiations fail.
That physical space is crucial, Dee, but Travis made it clear that going to bed connected is their 4-year marriage non-negotiable, dating all the way back to their whirlwind 2021 romance, and those 3 separate wedding ceremonies in Las Vegas, Santa Barbara, and Italy.
3 weddings will test anybody's communication skills, Rachel. By the time you get to the extravagant Portofino ceremony with the embroidered Virgin Mary veil, you either know how to resolve a lunch text dispute or your marriage is not surviving the reception.
And let us not forget they went through multiple rounds of IVF before welcoming their son Rocky 13 in November 2023. So they have been through some incredibly heavy emotional hurdles together before ever getting to minor daily grievances.
That shared history really puts a missed lunch text into perspective, doesn't it? When you have built a life blending his kids Landon and Alabama with her children Mason, Penelope, and Rain, a little communication breakdown is probably small potatoes.
Small potatoes until it wakes you up at 2 in the morning, Rachel. That is when the Calabasas wings of the mansion come in handy.
True, Bianca, because knowing when to retreat to another part of a 7-bedroom estate is just as important as the apology itself.
D. Looking back at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian built their bond through wellness and being neighbors in Calabasas before officially getting together in 2021, do you think that long friendship is the real anchor behind this rule of not going to bed angry?
Absolutely, Rachel, because when you have known someone as just a friend and workout buddy for years, you already have a foundation of trust before you ever deal with the high-pressure world of reality television, massive blended families, and paparazzi.
Trust is great, Dee, but let us be honest. Everyone can talk about taking accountability over a missed lunch text when things are calm. Yet doing it at 2 in the morning after a full day with 6 kids running around is an entirely different Olympic sport.
It really is, Bianca, especially when you factor in their specific household setup, with Travis owning that 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style property in Calabasas, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion undergoes major renovations to accommodate everyone.
Exactly, Rachel, because having 7 bedrooms in Travis's house gives them enough physical space to take a breather when tensions rise, which makes coming back together to resolve things before sleep much more manageable.
Space is the unsung hero of modern romance. D. If you are stuck in a studio apartment, a minor disagreement about a text message turns into a hostage situation very quickly. But in a multi-million-dollar Calabasas estate, you can march off to another wing and cool down.
And they certainly know how to put on a grand production when they want to celebrate their connection, remembering their 3 separate weddings, starting with that unofficial Las Vegas ceremony in April 2022, followed by the legal Santa Barbara paperwork, and then that lavish Portofino event.
That Italian celebration at Villa Olivetta was unforgettable, Rachel, especially with Kourtney wearing that custom Dolce & Gabbana corset mini dress and a sweeping veil embroidered with an image of the Virgin Mary and the words family, loyalty, and respect.
Complete with the gold candlesticks and crucifixes, D. They did not hold back on the symbolism, matching Travis's head tattoo and leaning completely into the drama of it all after years of just being the cool neighbors next door.
Before we move on, let us check in with what people are saying online about this whole no bedtime mad philosophy.
Naturally, the internet is split, Rachel, with some people calling it the ultimate relationship advice, while others online are joking that trying to hash out deep existential grievances at midnight is completely pointless when you just want to sleep.
Though given everything they went through with multiple rounds of IVF before welcoming their son Rocky 13 in November 2023, a little midnight text argument about lunch probably feels pretty straightforward by comparison.
That shared emotional hurdle really changes your perspective on daily irritations, doesn't it, Dee?
It definitely keeps things in perspective, Rachel. But I still maintain that if my partner wakes me up at midnight to apologize for not texting back about a sandwich, we are going to have a very different kind of conversation.
That shared emotional hurdle really changes your perspective on daily irritations, doesn't it, Dee?
It definitely keeps things in perspective, Rachel, but I still maintain that if my partner wakes me up at midnight to apologize for not texting back about a sandwich, we are going to have a very different kind of conversation.
Well, Bianca, when you look at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian built their foundation, going from neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas for years before getting together in 2021, maybe hashing out those little text message delays is just part of keeping that old school bond alive.
Exactly, Rachel, because as Travis pointed out in that recent interview published in August, no issue is too small when you want to make sure you stay connected before turning off the lights, even if it is just clearing up a misunderstanding about meeting for lunch.
It is very sweet, I will give them that, but let us not forget that they also have the luxury of retreating to their massive properties in Calabasas when they actually do need some physical space from each other.
That is a very good point, Bianca. They currently live in Travis's Mediterranean-style 9,250 square foot estate, which he bought back in 2007 for $9,500,000, while Kourtney's larger 11,700 square foot mansion undergoes major renovations.
Renovations that Kourtney explained on their family show were specifically designed to accommodate their large blended family, bringing together their 6 children, including Mason, Penelope, and Rain from her relationship with Scott Disick, and Landon and Alabama from Travis's marriage to Shanna Moakler, plus stepdaughter Atiana De La Hoya and their joint son, Rocky 13.
Managing a household with 6 kids and a newborn like little Rocky 13, who was born in November 2023 after their long IVF journey, certainly requires clear communication.
Which brings us right back to that no bedtime angry rule, Rachel. Because with a bustling house like that in Calabasas, small things like a missed text about lunch could easily snowball if you let them sit overnight.
It really highlights how far they have come since their whirlwind of wedding ceremonies back in 2022. Starting with that unplanned 2 a.m. Vegas chapel night, moving to the legal Santa Barbara courthouse ceremony, and culminating in that grand Portofino celebration hosted by Dolce & Gabbana.
And through all of that high-profile romance, fans online keep focusing right back on this simple piece of relationship advice he shared about taking accountability before bed.
Though, as some viewers watching along tonight have pointed out, trying to resolve deep grievances at midnight might work for a rock star drummer like Travis Barker, but for the rest of us, sometimes sleep is just the better option.
And just looking at how they manage all of that, with 6 children across their blended family and 2 properties right next to each other in Calabasas, it is fascinating how they keep things grounded.
Well, their team has pointed out that having both the 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style estate that Travis bought back in 2007 for $9.5 million and Kourtney's $7.45 million property nearby gives them plenty of room to breathe.
Exactly, because even the tightest no bedtime angry rule needs a bit of physical space when you are juggling a bustling household and a toddler like little Rocky 13.
It is quite a journey when you think back to how their romance blossomed from being neighbors and workout buddies into that beach proposal in Montecito, California, back in 2021.
And let us not forget those 3 separate wedding ceremonies, Bianca, starting with that unplanned 2 a.m. Vegas chapel night without a license, moving to the legal Santa Barbara courthouse ceremony. And finally, that lavish Portofino celebration hosted by Dolce & Gabbana.
And through all of those high-profile moments and their shared IVF journey, reports show they really lean on that mutual love for wellness that brought them together in the first place.
Jessica from Seattle writes in to say, I just love how real Travis sounds about taking accountability for missed texts. It makes them feel like a normal couple despite living in a massive Calabasas mansion.
That is such a sweet point from Jessica, because as Bianca mentioned earlier, hashing out a missed text about lunch at midnight might not work for everyone, but it clearly works for them.
Oh, absolutely, Rachel. Though I still maintain that if my partner tried to solve a text message misunderstanding at 1 in the morning after a full day with 6 kids, I might just hand them a pillow and say, let us talk about lunch tomorrow.
But that is just it. According to the statements they shared, it is not about having a massive blowout debate every single night, but rather keeping that simple connection alive so nothing festers.
Which really brings us back to their roots as friends and neighbors in Calabasas, long before they ever walked down any of those 3 aisles. Which really brings us back to their roots as friends and neighbors in Calabasas, long before they ever walked down any of those 3 aisles, Dee.
Well, Rachel, looking at how they transitioned from being workout buddies to sharing a home and a family, it is fascinating to see how they managed to keep things grounded despite having an extraordinary 9,250 square foot mansion with 7 bedrooms and a tennis court right there in California.
Honestly, Dee, living in a house that size with a home theater, a wine cellar, and a massive gym probably makes it a lot easier to take that physical space Travis talks about when a text message about lunch goes unanswered.
That is such a valid point, Bianca, because as Travis mentioned in his interview, having the room to breathe is just as important as the rule itself.
Exactly, Rachel. And it is worth remembering that they are currently using his Mediterranean-style estate as their primary residence, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot home undergoes major renovations to accommodate their 6 children.
Imagine trying to coordinate schedules for Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and Little Rocky 13. All while worrying about whether someone responded to a text about a midday sandwich at midnight.
It really puts those daily domestic hiccups into perspective, doesn't it, Dee? Especially when you look back at everything they went through to build this family, including their shared IVF journey.
That is right, Rachel. The reporting highlights how deeply connected they became through those vulnerable moments before they even welcomed their son Rocky 13 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center back in November of 23.
And you have to admire the commitment. Even if the idea of hashing out minor communication issues late at night sounds exhausting to anyone who has ever tried to put a toddler to sleep.
Well, some of our viewers are definitely chiming in on that exact balance, aren't they, Bianca?
Oh, absolutely, Rachel. We have a message from Marcus in Chicago who writes, I appreciate Travis being open about taking accountability, but my wife and I would probably fall asleep mid-sentence if we tried that at midnight.
Marcus, that is hilarious and probably far more common than people care to admit.
Though it is interesting, Rachel, that the statement emphasized how even the smallest gesture, like taking ownership of a missed text, stops resentment from building up over their 4 years of marriage.
Which goes right back to the foundation they built over years of being neighbors in Calabasas before hard launching their relationship after Valentine's Day in 2021.
It is quite a journey from being workout buddies to having an impromptu 2 o'clock in the morning ceremony in Las Vegas, a legal wedding in Santa Barbara, and that grand celebration in Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana.
And let us not forget the details of that Italian ceremony, Bianca, with the hand-embroidered veil featuring the image of the Virgin Mary and the words family, loyalty, and respect inspired by one of Travis's tattoos.
It is those deeply personal touches that make their dynamic so unique, balancing rock and roll history with very traditional vows about never going to bed angry.
True, Rachel, though I still maintain that a 20-foot veil is a lot harder to manage than remembering to text back about
True, Bianca. Though when you think about the sheer logistical weight of blending a family with 6 children, having those 2 properties in Calabasas must feel less like a luxury and more like an absolute necessity for sanity.
Oh, absolutely, Rachel. Because even the most romantic rock and roll drummer in the world needs a quiet corner to decompress when you have teenagers and a toddler running around the estate.
And remember, Dee, that while Travis owns that 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style home where they currently live, Kourtney has been doing a major renovation on her own 11,700 square foot mansion just down the road to make it fit for all 6 kids.
It is fascinating how they managed to build that entire life together after starting out simply as neighbors and workout buddies who shared a deep love for wellness long before they hard-launched their romance in 2021.
And then they made up for lost time by having 3 separate wedding ceremonies, starting with that impromptu 2 o'clock in the morning celebration in Las Vegas without a marriage license, followed by the legal one in Santa Barbara.
And finishing with that stunning celebration in Portofino, Italy, at Villa Olivetta, where Kourtney wore that unique Dolce & Gabbana lace corset mini dress with a sweeping veil featuring hand-embroidered flowers and the Virgin Mary.
Which brings us right back to the core of what Travis was sharing about their 4-year marriage, Dee. emphasizing that no disagreement is too small to address before turning the lights off for the night.
Though I still maintain, Rachel, that if my partner forgot to text me back about lunch, my first instinct would not necessarily be an immediate deep dive accountability session before bedtime.
Well, Bianca, that is exactly why Travis pointed out that taking accountability, even for something as simple as missing a text message about a midday meal, is what keeps them feeling connected despite their very busy schedules.
It certainly puts those minor daily misunderstandings into perspective when you factor in their shared journey through multiple rounds of IVF before welcoming their son, Rocky 13, in November 2023.
That is a very valid point, Rachel. Because when you have gone through something as intense as fertility treatments together, hashing out a missed text message probably feels like a walk in the park.
And as we saw with their blended family dynamics, including Kourtney's children Mason, Penelope, and Rain with Scott Disick, alongside Travis's children Landon and Alabama with Shanna Moakler, keeping communication clear is essential.
As viewer Sarah in Denver pointed out earlier tonight, maintaining that level of late-night conflict resolution with 6 children at home sounds exhausting, but clearly their system is working for them.
It works because they have the physical space to retreat to, Rachel, which is the secret ingredient nobody talks about when it comes to marriage rules.
That Calabasas infrastructure really does heavy lifting, Bianca, giving them the proximity to stay close while still having enough square footage to breathe.
And on that note of domestic logistics and rock and roll romance, let us look closer at how they balance the demands of their careers with family life. And as we continue through the quiet hours of the night here on our live desk, let us dive deeper into the domestic blueprint of Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian. Because, D, looking at how they manage their households in Calabasas really sheds light on why a rule like never going to bed angry actually works in practice.
That is right, Rachel, because when you have a 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style estate on one side and an 11,750 square foot mansion just a stone's throw away, undergoing major renovations, space is a luxury that definitely prevents minor squabbles from blowing out of proportion.
Exactly, Dee. And let us be completely honest here, because while Travis talking about texting miscommunications over lunch sounds very grounded for a 50-year-old rock drummer, it is a lot easier to take accountability and say sorry when you can literally walk over to a separate wing or even a completely separate house if you need 5 minutes to cool down.
It is a fascinating balance between intense closeness and having room to breathe, especially when you factor in their blended family dynamics with 6 children running around between them.
Hi, everyone watching. This is Marcus writing in from Chicago. Honestly, listening to you all talk about Travis and Kourtney hashing out text message delays before sleeping makes me feel so seen, because my partner and I have the exact same rule, even if it usually leads to us arguing about who forgot to do the dishes at 2 in the morning.
Marcus, thank you for that message from Chicago, because that right there hits on the exact reason why people online are talking so much about this interview, as it turns everyday relationship friction into something completely relatable.
It is relatable until you remember they did not just have one quiet wedding at home, Marcus. They went all out with 3 separate ceremonies, starting with that infamous 2 in the morning Las Vegas wedding in April 2022, where they did not even bother with a marriage license.
And then following that up with the legal ceremony at a Santa Barbara clerk's office the next month before flying out to Portofino, Italy for that massive celebration at Villa Olivetta with Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana.
That Italian ceremony was nothing short of a spectacle, Dee, featuring hand-embroidered flowers on her veil and explicit nods to family, loyalty, and respect inspired by the tattoo on Travis's head.
A tattoo on the head, Rachel! Let us never gloss over that detail, because that is peak rock and roll commitment right there. Blending traditional family values with Blink-182 punk aesthetics.
Speaking of their journey, let us not forget that before all the weddings and the massive California estates, they spent years simply as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas, sharing a deep mutual love for wellness long before romance ever entered the picture.
And that friendship foundation is probably why 50-year-old Travis and 47-year-old Kourtney were able to weather so much, including their well-documented difficult rounds of IVF treatments before welcoming their son Rocky 13 Barker in November 2023.
Going through medical journeys like IVF together definitely puts minor text message misunderstandings into perspective, D, because once you share that kind of heavy emotional terrain, clearing the air before sleep becomes second nature.
And on that note of shared history, let us look closer at how their individual pasts with their other children shape the way they run their household today. Continuing with our late-night look at Travis Barker and 47-year-old Kourtney Kardashian's marriage rules. Dee, you were noting how their background in wellness and long-term friendship really sets the tone for how they handle everyday domestic life.
That is right, Rachel, because when you look at how 50-year-old Travis described their communication style, it is all about stripping away the ego over minor things like missed text messages or lunch plans and just owning up to it right away before turning off the lights.
Honestly, owning up to forgetting a text message is half the battle in any relationship, let alone when you are managing a massive blended family in Calabasas with 6 children running around and 2 separate properties to keep track of.
It is a very grounded approach for a couple who had 3 separate wedding ceremonies, from that spontaneous 2 o'clock in the morning unlicensed chapel in Las Vegas back in April 2022, to the legal ceremony in Santa Barbara and that massive celebration in Portofino, Italy.
And let us not forget that even with all that grand romance and the elaborate Dolce & Gabbana fashion, their actual daily routine comes back to those simple wellness roots they built years ago when they were just neighbors and workout buddies sharing a dedication to health.
Which is probably why they survived years of public attention and difficult medical challenges, including their intense IVF journey before welcoming their son, Rocky 13 Barker, in November 2023.
Speaking of that incredible journey, Bianca, let us remind everyone watching just how much mutual trust was required for Travis and Kourtney to weather those heavy emotional moments before their family was complete.
Exactly, Rachel. Because once you go through major medical hurdles together, minor daily friction, like a delayed reply about lunch, just rolls right off your back, making that no bedtime angry rule feel less like a chore and more like natural common sense.
Exactly what their team emphasized, pointing out that no issue is too small to address if it keeps them feeling connected, which is a luxury they can easily manage thanks to the physical space inside Travis's 9,250 square foot Mediterranean estate, while Kourtney's nearby home undergoes renovations.
It really highlights how physical space and emotional accountability go hand in hand when you are blending 2 families that include Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and Atiana alongside little Rocky 13.
Exactly, because without that space and that strict rule to clear the air before sleep, a house with 6 kids would probably turn into total chaos by midnight.
Building on that exact thought, Bianca, when you look at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian navigate these tiny daily hiccups, like miscommunication over a lunch date text, it really shows how much value they place on keeping those lines of communication wide open before turning off the bedside lights.
Absolutely, Rachel, because letting even a minor annoyance about a missed text fester overnight can quietly turn into something much bigger by morning, which is why having that strict 0 unresolved issues rule in their 4-year marriage makes so much practical sense.
And their team really emphasized that point, noting that no issue is considered too trivial to hash out, whether it involves scheduling confusion or just wanting to take immediate accountability and say, "Hey, I'm sorry I didn't see your message right away."
D. What makes that level of daily accountability even more fascinating is looking back at how long they spent as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before their relationship ever turned romantic back in 2021, building a deep friendship first.
Right? Because when you have history that goes back that far, you already know each other's quirks, meaning by the time they got engaged on that Montecito beach and went through their 3 separate wedding ceremonies, from the unlicensed Las Vegas chapel to Santa Barbara and that lavish Italian celebration in Portofino, They had a very solid foundation.
That shared history also helped them weather major hurdles together, including their well-documented IVF journey before they welcomed their son, Rocky 13, in November 2023, which certainly puts everyday text message misunderstandings into a much calmer perspective.
It really does. And when you combine that shared medical journey with the logistical reality of managing a blended family that includes Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and Atiana, having physical space becomes just as important as emotional honesty, doesn't it, Bianca?
Totally, Rachel. Because sharing a 9,250 square foot Mediterranean estate in Calabasas while Kourtney's nearby 11,750 square foot home undergoes its major family-friendly renovations gives everyone enough breathing room to actually cool down before trying to talk things out.
Exactly. And that balance between physical space and strict communication rules is something a lot of people watching us tonight can probably relate to in their own homes, especially when balancing hectic family schedules late at night. And just looking at the clock here, we are moving past the 19-minute mark of our live hour. So for anyone just tuning in to our late night broadcast, welcome to the conversation.
We are right in the middle of breaking down how 50-year-old Travis Barker and 47-year-old Kourtney Kardashian keep their 4-year marriage running smoothly at home, Rachel.
Exactly, Bianca, because Travis recently opened up in a new interview about their golden rule, never going to sleep angry at each other, no matter how small the misunderstanding might be.
And the examples he gave were so wonderfully ordinary, Dee, talking about texting mix-ups regarding lunch plans and stepping up to take immediate accountability instead of letting resentment build up before turning off the lights.
Which is honestly refreshing to hear from a member of Blink-82 who survived a terrifying plane crash in 28 and has lived life at absolute maximum velocity ever since.
It really grounds the whole picture, doesn't it? And speaking of grounding ourselves, we actually just got a message sent into the studio from a viewer watching us tonight.
This is Maya writing in from Portland, and she says, "My husband and I have been married for 12 years, and by midnight, we are usually too exhausted to even remember what we were arguing about. How do they actually manage to hash things out when they are that tired?"
That is such a fair question from Maya, because hashing out a text message misunderstanding when you are dead tired at 2 in the morning takes a very specific kind of patience.
Exactly, Maya, because when you have been friends and workout buddies for years before officially getting together in 21, you probably build up a different tier of communication shortcuts than the rest of us.
And let's not forget, Dee, that communication happens across a very specific physical layout in Calabasas, where they have access to separate massive properties to cool down in when a late-night chat needs a little breathing room.
That combination of strict rules and physical space is fascinating, and it contrasts so sharply with the whirlwind romance that led to their 3 wedding ceremonies back in 2022.
Oh, those ceremonies were a whole spectacle, Rachel. Starting with that unlicensed 2 in the morning chapel in Las Vegas, right after the Grammy Awards, followed by the legal courthouse stop in Santa Barbara.
And then culminating in that jaw-dropping, incredibly lavish celebration in Portofino, Italy at Villa Olivetta, surrounded by Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana's estate, with all those custom religious details and the embroidered veil.
It is quite a journey from an impromptu Vegas chapel to building a peaceful, structured family life with their blended household of 6 children and their son Rocky 13. And when you look at how they manage all of this day in and day out, Bianca, it really comes down to the foundation they built long before they ever walked down the aisle in any of those 3 ceremonies.
Absolutely, Rachel, because let us not forget they were friends and neighbors in Calabasas for years, running together and working out as buddies before things ever turned romantic around 2021.
And that shared passion for wellness and fitness is actually what Travis pointed to as one of the main reasons they got so close in the first place, long before anyone was talking about Vegas chapels or Italian estates.
Dee, that history of just being solid friends first is probably why they can be so direct about accountability now, like when he talks about sorting out who was supposed to meet who for lunch.
Oh, exactly, Rachel. When you have already known someone as a neighbor for a long time, Minor misunderstandings about a missed text do not become massive catastrophes because the trust is already baked right into the foundation.
Exactly what their team has emphasized, Bianca, noting that no issue is considered too small to talk through if it leaves either of them feeling disconnected before they close their eyes for the night.
It is a remarkably grounded approach for two people whose lives are otherwise played out under a massive public microscope. From the reality television cameras to releasing albums and running global lifestyle brands.
Well, and let us be honest, Rachel. Having a 9,000+ square foot mansion in Calabasas certainly helps when you need a little time out to collect your thoughts before coming back to the conversation.
That Calabasas property layout has been a huge part of their logistical routine, especially now while Kourtney's own 11,000 square foot home nearby undergoes major renovations to accommodate their blended family.
Managing 6 children all together, from Mason, Penelope, and Rain on one side to Landon, Alabama, and Little Rocky 13, requires a level of organization that makes clear communication an absolute necessity.
You cannot have a chaotic household with 6 kids and let small little resentments fester over who replied to a message, otherwise the whole place would descend into total madness by midnight.
And as they navigate all of that, Dee, let us remember they also went through the immense emotional roller coaster of multiple IVF rounds before welcoming Rocky 13 in November of 2023.
That shared journey through IVF and medical uncertainty puts every little daily annoyance into immediate perspective, doesn't it?
Oh, undoubtedly, Rachel. When you fight that hard to build a family together, hashing out a silly lunch text miscommunication before bed is just standard maintenance for a couple that knows what really matters.
And as we keep looking at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian balance their whirlwind public life with the simple grounded habits of their 4-year marriage, Bianca, it is fascinating how the 50th birthday milestone for Travis really brings a lot of this maturity into focus.
Absolutely, Rachel. Because when you reach 50 and you have survived everything Travis has been through, from the severe burns in that 2008 plane crash to decades of touring with Blink 182, your perspective on minor arguments completely shifts.
That is such a vital point, Bianca, because as he noted in that recent interview published in August, the 50-year-old drummer makes a point to never go to sleep angry, even if it is just hashing out a silly text message about meeting for lunch.
And Dee, what is interesting about that is how they lean on their history as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before things turned romantic in 2021, because they already knew each other's routines inside and out.
Right, Dee. They skipped the awkward introductory phase entirely and went straight to working out together and sharing that mutual love for wellness, which makes establishing a rule like clearing the air before midnight feel very natural for them.
It really does. And Dee, let us remind everyone that this dedication to communication spans across 3 separate wedding ceremonies. From that unlicensed 2 a.m. chapel in Las Vegas back in April of 2022 to the legal ceremony in Santa Barbara and the extravagant Italian celebration in Portofino.
And Dee has noted from the coverage that the Italian wedding at Villa Olivetta, owned by Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana, was packed with personal touches, including the Virgin Mary portraits and the famous veil embroidered with words like family, loyalty, and respect.
Which is quite a contrast, Dee. When you think about them coming home to Calabasas to deal with everyday text messages about lunch schedules and 6 kids running around the massive properties.
Managing those 2 massive properties in Calabasas, Travis's 9,250 square foot Mediterranean estate purchased back in 2007 and Kourtney's 11,700 square foot home undergoing renovations gives them the physical space they need to breathe after a long day, doesn't it, Bianca?
Oh, space is everything when you have a blended family that size, Rachel. Because you cannot enforce a strict no bedtime angry rule if everyone is constantly stepping on each other's toes without a place to retreat.
And just looking at the clock here, we are moving right through our late night hour, talking about Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian and their absolute commitment to never going to bed angry over the smallest things. Aren't we, Bianca?
Oh, absolutely, Rachel. Because when you have a 50-year-old punk rock icon admitting in interviews that he has to own up to missing a text about lunch, it completely humanizes the whole dynamic, doesn't it?
It really does. And Dee, You were digging into how they balance that level of intense daily communication with needing actual physical downtime, right?
That is right, Rachel, because while they emphasize staying connected and airing out every little misunderstanding before turning off the lights, they also rely heavily on having separate estates right there in Calabasas to give each other room to breathe.
Which is crucial when you are managing a massive blended family with 6 kids running around, because without those physical boundaries, you would drive each other completely insane trying to resolve lunch text disputes at midnight.
Speaking of how families at home process all of this, let's take a look at a message that just came in from the live chat right now.
Viewer Marcus from Denver writes in, "Honestly, if I tried to hash out every single missed text message with my wife at midnight after working all day with 4 kids in the house, we would never sleep. How do they actually manage to stay calm enough to take accountability instead of just losing their patience?"
That is such a fair question from Marcus, because let's be honest, when you are exhausted at the end of the day, taking accountability is a lot harder than just rolling over and going to sleep.
It really is, but remember that Travis and Kourtney have a very long history of being neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas long before they started dating in 2021, so they built a foundation of trust over years of friendship first.
Exactly, Dee. And let's not forget, they also went through a very public and emotionally draining IVF journey together before welcoming their son Rocky 13 in November 23, which definitely puts a delayed text about lunch into a completely different perspective.
That shared journey through IVF and building their blended family with Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and Atiana certainly changes how you handle daily friction, doesn't it, Bianca?
Oh, for sure, Rachel. Because once you have navigated medical heartbreak and massive public milestones together, like having 3 separate wedding ceremonies from Las Vegas to Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana, minor communication hiccups just do not rattle you the same way anymore.
And the coverage highlights how intentional they are about it all, right down to Travis mentioning that no issue is too small to discuss, whether it is about meeting up for a bite to eat or just making sure they feel fully connected before the day ends.
It is fascinating to look at how far they have come since those early days as neighbors in California, balancing their blended family life across those 2 massive properties in Calabasas, while keeping their 4-year marriage grounded in those old-school communication rules. And speaking of that deep foundation of trust they built from years as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before romance ever blossomed, Dee, it really anchors how they handle small misunderstandings today, doesn't it?
Absolutely, Rachel, because when you look at the reporting, they emphasize that no issue is ever considered too trivial to hash out, whether it is a missed text about meeting up for a bite to eat or a simple miscommunication about daily schedules.
Which is refreshing, honestly, because so many couples let those tiny little annoyances build up into massive resentments over time. Whereas Travis explicitly mentioned taking total accountability right away, so they never drift apart before turning off the light.
Bianca, it is that kind of old-school accountability that makes their 4-year marriage feel so grounded, especially when you weigh it against the heavy public milestones they have navigated, like their 3 distinct wedding ceremonies from Las Vegas to Portofino.
Oh, those weddings were an absolute spectacle, Rachel, starting with that unlicensed 2 in the morning chapel dash in Las Vegas right after the Grammy Awards, moving to the legal paperwork in Santa Barbara, and finally ending up at Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana's hilltop estate in Italy.
And let us not forget the emotional weight behind those celebrations. Dee, with Kourtney's custom veil featuring hand-embroidered flowers and the image of the Virgin Mary alongside the words family, loyalty, and respect, mirroring one of Travis's tattoos.
It really ties back to how they manage a bustling household of 6 children, doesn't it, Bianca? Balancing Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and Atiana, while keeping their communication rules front and center.
Exactly, Rachel. Because having a blended family of that size means chaos is just part of the daily job description. So having a strict no bedtime angry policy isn't just romantic fluff. It is pure survival strategy.
And the reporting highlights how their massive properties in Calabasas play into that logistical balance, with Travis's 9,250 square foot Mediterranean estate providing necessary physical space, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion undergoes major renovations.
That physical space is crucial, Dee, because as much as they prioritize connection and wellness, stemming back to their early days as workout buddies running together. Having room to breathe when exhaustion hits is what keeps the peace.
Totally, Rachel. Because let us be real. Trying to resolve a late-night disagreement about a dropped text when you are completely wiped out from parenting 6 kids and running multiple businesses takes a serious amount of maturity.
It really does, Bianca. And looking at how Travis reached his 50th birthday recently, that 50-year milestone combined with their shared IVF journey for little Rocky 13 certainly gives them a very different perspective on daily friction.
That shared medical journey and building their family together changed everything about how they view everyday hiccups, making minor misunderstandings feel entirely manageable by comparison.
And that is why their approach resonates so much, Rachel. It is not about being a fairy tale couple with 0 problems. It is about owning your mistakes, saying you are sorry, and refusing to go to sleep disconnected.
Absolutely, Bianca, and thinking about how they navigate those ordinary moments really highlights why their 4-year marriage feels so grounded despite the whirlwind of their public life.
It is so true, Rachel, because owning up to a dropped text or a delayed lunch plan when you are both exhausted takes real maturity. And as Dee mentioned earlier, having that physical space in their massive Calabasas properties makes all the difference.
That is right, Bianca, because even though they are currently using Travis's 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style home as their primary residence while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot estate undergoes that major renovation, having separate spaces inside those properties lets them take a breather before they hash things out.
D, when you look at their history, going from longtime neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas to hard launching their relationship back in 2021, it is fascinating how those early wellness routines laid the groundwork for how they handle conflict today.
Exactly, Rachel, because Travis actually pointed out that sharing a love for wellness and working out together before they ever dated gave them a unique bond, which only deepened when they went through their shared IVF journey to welcome little Rocky 13 in November 23.
And let us not forget, Dee, that when you blend a family with 6 children, including Kourtney's kids with Scott Disick and Travis's kids with Shanna Moakler, daily misunderstandings are bound to happen, so having that strict rule of never going to bed angry is practically a survival tactic.
It really is, Bianca. And looking back at their 3 wedding ceremonies, from that unlicensed 2 in the morning chapel in Las Vegas in April 2022, to the legal courthouse wedding in Santa Barbara, and then that lavish celebration in Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana. They certainly know how to make things memorable.
Oh, that Portofino wedding with the hand-embroidered veil featuring the Virgin Mary and the words family, loyalty, and respect was a whole cinematic production, Rachel.
And remember, Bianca, that Italian celebration at Villa Olivetta came right after their legal ceremony in Santa Barbara, following that wild night in Las Vegas right after the Grammy Awards.
It is quite a journey from being workout buddies to celebrating 50 years of life for Travis recently. And as our viewers are pointing out tonight, keeping that line of communication open late at night is no small feat.
Totally, Rachel. Because when you are 50 and 47, you realize that letting a silly miscommunication about lunch ruin your sleep is just a waste of precious time.
Welcome back, everyone joining us in the middle of the night on this live stream. We are deep into our discussion on Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian. And Dee, you were just walking us through how their long history as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas laid the groundwork for everything they share now.
That is right, Rachel. They were friends for years before their relationship turned romantic in 2021, bonding over wellness and running together, which really explains why their communication style is so grounded today.
Grounded is one word for it, Dee, though let us be honest, when you have 2 massive properties in Calabasas, like his 9,250 square foot Mediterranean home and her 11,700 square foot mansion undergoing renovations for their blended family, having physical space is probably the real secret to never going to bed angry.
You always find the practical angle, Bianca, but Travis was actually very specific in that interview about how they handle small misunderstandings, like missing a text about meeting up for lunch.
We have a message coming in right now from Sarah in Denver who says, honestly, with 6 kids running around between them, trying to hash out every little text message before falling asleep sounds exhausting. But maybe that is why their 4-year marriage actually works. Sarah makes a brilliant point, because when you are balancing Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and Little Rocky 13, plus managing their shared IVF journey that brought baby Rocky into the world in November 23. Staying connected late at night takes serious dedication.
It really does. And as we were remembering earlier, they have certainly celebrated in a big way over the years, from that unlicensed 2 in the morning chapel in Las Vegas after the Grammy Awards, to the legal courthouse ceremony in Santa Barbara, and that unforgettable celebration at Villa Olivetta in Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana.
And that Portofino wedding had so many personal touches, Rachel, including that hand-embroidered veil featuring the Virgin Mary and the words family, loyalty, and respect inspired by Travis's head tattoo.
A true cinematic production, D. But coming back to the present, 50-year-old Travis and 47-year-old Kourtney are showing that after all those grand celebrations and 3 weddings, it really comes down to accountability over simple daily hiccups.
And just looking at the clock here, we are moving deep into our night. But this conversation about 50-year-old Travis Barker and 47-year-old Kourtney Kardashian just keeps giving us so much to unpack, right, Bianca?
It really does, Rachel, because when you break down what Travis shared about their 4-year marriage, it is all about stripping away the noise and focusing on that one golden rule of never going to bed angry, no matter how small the tiff is.
And D here, backing that up from the reporting, because as he mentioned in that interview published in August, even if it is just a missed text about meeting for lunch, they clear the air right then and there so they stay connected before turning off the lights.
That accountability is so key, isn't it, Dee? Taking ownership right away with a simple apology instead of letting things fester overnight when you have a massive blended family and 6 children running around.
Exactly, Rachel, because let us be honest, when you are managing Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and Little Rocky 13, small miscommunications can easily pile up if you do not address them immediately.
And the reports also highlighted how lucky they are to have that physical space within their massive properties in Calabasas to take a breather when they need it, balancing togetherness with personal space.
That Mediterranean-style estate Travis bought back in 2017 for $9.5 million has certainly served them well as a primary residence, while Kourtney's larger 11,700 square foot home undergoes major renovations for the family.
It is fascinating to think about how far they have come, from being longtime neighbors and workout buddies who shared a deep love for wellness, all the way to welcoming baby Rocky in November 23 after their shared IVF journey.
And let us not forget the journey to get to this point, including those 3 unforgettable wedding ceremonies back in 22, from that spontaneous 2 in the morning chapel in Las Vegas without a license, to the legal paperwork in Santa Barbara, and finally that lavish celebration in Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana.
That Portofino wedding with the hand-embroidered veil featuring the Virgin Mary and the words family, loyalty, and respect inspired by Travis's head tattoo was truly a cinematic moment, Dee.
It really was. But what makes them so relatable right now is that despite all that Hollywood glamour and 3 grand weddings, their actual daily life comes down to basic communication about lunch texts and not going to sleep mad.
We actually had a message come in from Sarah in Denver earlier tonight, and she was wondering how on earth anyone finds the energy for late-night conflict resolution with 6 kids under one roof.
Well, based on what Travis is saying, Sarah, the trick seems to be nipping those tiny misunderstandings in the bud before they even have a chance to grow into full-blown arguments.
It takes maturity, plain and simple. And at 50 years old, Travis seems to have really embraced that old school rule of keeping his home life grounded and peaceful.
It is just past midnight here in our studio, and for those of you just tuning in to our late-night conversation, we have been deep diving into the quiet, grounded side of Hollywood romance, specifically looking at Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian.
And honestly, Rachel, hearing Travis talk about owning up to missing a text message about lunch feels so refreshingly normal for a guy who spent decades touring the world as the drummer for Blink-182.
D here. And what is fascinating about this is that their team has emphasized how deliberate they are about this rule after 4 years of marriage, making sure no minor miscommunication lingers past bedtime.
What did you make of that detail, Bianca, about how they balance this intense daily communication with needing physical space, especially since they own 2 massive properties right next door to each other in Calabasas?
I think having 9,000 square feet of separation in Calabasas is the ultimate marriage hack, Rachel, because when you have 6 children between the 2 of you, Sometimes you just need to walk to the other house to cool down.
Exactly, Bianca. And let us not forget that while Travis is living in his Mediterranean-style home from 2007, Kourtney has been doing a massive renovation on her 11,000 square foot mansion just a stone's throw away to accommodate their large blended family.
It is quite the logistical setup, isn't it, Dee? Especially when you look back at how their relationship blossomed from being longtime neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas into a full-scale romance back in 2021.
They went from running together and sharing a mutual love for wellness to having 3 separate wedding ceremonies in 2022, including that unforgettable Portofino celebration with Dolce & Gabbana.
And that Portofino wedding truly was a cinematic moment, featuring that hand-embroidered veil with the Virgin Mary and the words family, loyalty, and respect, inspired by one of Travis's head tattoos.
We actually had a message come in from Sarah in Denver a little while ago, wondering how on earth anyone finds the emotional energy for late-night conflict resolution when you are managing a blended family of 6 children.
Well, Sarah, at 50 years old, Travis seems to have really embraced an old-school maturity where he takes accountability right away, even if it is just admitting he did not see Kourtney's text message about lunch.
Dee checking in on that, because their shared IVF journey and welcoming their son Rocky 13 in November of 2023 definitely put those minor daily misunderstandings into a much deeper perspective.
It really grounds them, doesn't it, Dee? Moving past the flashiness of those 3 weddings, from the unlicensed Las Vegas chapel to Santa Barbara and Italy, down to basic daily accountability.
It proves that no matter how famous you are or how elaborate your wedding veil was, your marriage still comes down to whether you can apologize for missing a lunch date before you turn the lights out.
Welcome back to The Late Shift, everyone, where we are still deep in the weeds of Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian's 4-year marriage and that strict rule of theirs about never going to bed angry.
Honestly, Rachel, at 50 years old, Travis giving interviews about owning up to missing a text message about lunch is the kind of grounded domesticity you just do not expect from a guy who spent decades smashing drums in pop-punk arenas.
Dee checking in with what the reporting actually highlights here, because it is not just about avoiding petty text arguments. It is about how they manage their massive properties in Calabasas to make sure they actually have the physical space to breathe when things get tense.
That is such a vital point you brought up, Dee, because living in those huge neighboring and overlapping estates gives them room to step back while still maintaining that rule of total accountability before they turn out the lights.
Exactly, Rachel, because when you are managing a blended family of 6 children, from Mason, Penelope, and Rain to Landon, Alabama, and their little boy, Rocky 13, you need all the square footage and emotional maturity you can get. Hi, everyone. I am Claire, watching from Philadelphia. And I just have to say that while this no bedtime angry rule sounds sweet in an interview, trying to hash out a miscommunication about lunch when you have half a dozen kids running around sounds like an absolute logistical nightmare.
Claire, you are speaking the truth, because as Bianca was just saying, that kind of old-school communication takes serious work when you have a full house and a couple of decades of life experience behind you.
And let us remember, Dee reporting here, that this deep foundation of trust did not just pop up overnight. They were neighbors and workout buddies for years in Calabasas before they even started dating back in 2021.
Which makes their whirlwind romance complete with 3 separate weddings, from that unlicensed 2 o'clock chapel in Las Vegas to Santa Barbara and that massive Dolce & Gabbana celebration in Portofino. Even more fascinating because underneath all the gothic glamour, they are just trying to settle who forgot to reply about lunch.
It really brings it all down to earth, doesn't it, Bianca? Moving past the elaborate wedding veils with the Virgin Mary embroidery, right down to apologizing for being out of pocket during the day.
Dee here again, noting that their shared IVF journey and welcoming Rocky 13 in November of 23 definitely put those minor daily misunderstandings into a much deeper, more grounded perspective for both of them.
You can afford to laugh off missing a text message when you have already built a life through years of friendship, wellness routines, and major family milestones, but Travis making it a public point to take accountability at 50 is still quite something to...
Welcome back to The Late Shift, everyone. Keeping our eyes on the stories making noise right now as the clock ticks past the midnight hour.
And honestly, Rachel, I am still sitting here thinking about Travis Barker getting completely transparent about his marriage rules with Kourtney Kardashian at 50 years old.
Dee here, jumping in with the reporting details from that recent interview where the Blink 92 drummer made it very clear that they try never to close their eyes at night while still holding on to a disagreement.
It is such an interesting look behind the curtain, isn't it, Dee? Moving past all the gothic glamour and the massive Italian celebrations, right down to apologizing over a missed text about lunch.
Exactly, Rachel, because you can have 3 separate wedding ceremonies. From that unlicensed 2 o'clock chapel in Las Vegas to Santa Barbara and Portofino. But at the end of the day, someone still has to own up to not replying about meeting up in the middle of the day.
Dee here again, noting that their shared IVF journey and welcoming their son Rocky 13 in November of 23 definitely put those minor daily communication hiccups into a much deeper perspective.
That foundation of trust, Bianca, really goes back to their years as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before things ever turned romantic in 2021.
You can definitely afford to laugh off missing a text message when you have already built that kind of solid history together. But seeing a rock drummer publicly take accountability like that is still quite something to watch.
Dee checking in with the logistical side of things too, reminding everyone that while they prioritize staying connected, they also have the luxury of separate properties within their exclusive gated community in Calabasas when they need physical space.
That Calabasas estate setup is fascinating, isn't it, Dee? Especially while Kourtney's larger 11,700 square foot home undergoes those major renovations to accommodate their blended family of 6 children.
Having multiple massive properties in the same neighborhood is certainly one way to manage the chaos of a blended household, but let's be honest. Trying to resolve a late-night disagreement when you are exhausted from managing 6 kids is a whole different reality.
Dee here, noting that their strict rule is explicitly designed to avoid letting those little daily misunderstandings fester, no matter how tired they might be when the lights finally go out.
It really grounds the whole narrative, doesn't it? Before we move on to how fans online have been reacting to this very domestic side of rock and roll life, let's keep unpacking how their long friendship shaped it all. It really grounds the whole narrative, doesn't it? Before we move on to how fans online have been reacting to this very domestic side of rock and roll life, let's keep unpacking how their long friendship shaped it all, Dee.
Dee here, noting that what really stands out when you look at their timeline is how naturally they transitioned from being neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas into a full-blown romance back in 2021, building a foundation of trust long before any wedding bells rang.
Exactly, Dee. Because when you have known someone for years as just a friend and a neighbor, you already know their quirks. You already know how they handle stress. So by the time they hard-launched their relationship and Travis proposed on that beach in Montecito, California, they weren't exactly figuring each other out from scratch.
That is such a vital point, Bianca, and it really puts those 3 wedding ceremonies into perspective, doesn't it? From that unofficial 2 a.m. chapel ceremony in Las Vegas without a marriage license right after the Grammy Awards, to the legal paperwork at the Santa Barbara clerk's office, and finally that lavish celebration in Portofino, Italy, at Villa Olivetta.
Oh, that Portofino wedding with Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana was an absolute spectacle, complete with religious symbols, gold candlesticks, crucifixes, and Kourtney's one-of-a-kind lace and satin corset mini dress, featuring a sweeping veil embroidered with the Virgin Mary and the words family, loyalty, and respect inspired by Travis's head tattoo.
Dee reporting that even amidst all that high-fashion Italian glamour and their shared IVF journey that eventually brought them their son Rocky 13 in November 23, they still maintain these very grounded, old-school rules at home in Los Angeles.
We actually had a message come in from viewer Claire in Philadelphia, who writes in to ask whether having 2 separate massive properties in the same gated community in Calabasas makes it easier to actually enforce that strict no bedtime angry rule when things get chaotic.
Honestly, Claire, I think having those options is a lifesaver when you are managing a blended household of 6 children, including Mason, Penelope, and Rain with Scott Disick, alongside Landon, Alabama, and stepdaughter Atiana De La Hoya.
Dee noting that while Travis's Mediterranean-style estate, which he bought back in 2007 for $9,500,000, serves as their primary residence right now, Kourtney's 11,700 square foot home has been undergoing that massive renovation to properly accommodate the entire blended family.
It is fascinating how they balance the grand scale of their real estate portfolio with such minute, everyday accountability, like apologizing over a missed text about meeting for lunch. What do you make of that balance, Bianca?
Bianca here, saying that while some people online might roll their eyes at celebrities sharing basic communication tips, being 50 and 47 means you have both been through enough previous relationships to know that sweat the small stuff or it builds up.
Dee here, adding that his 50th birthday and their 4 years of marriage really seem to have brought a certain level of maturity to how they handle public curiosity about their private dynamics.
Before we dive deeper into how fans are discussing this across social media platforms right now, let's take a quick look at how their shared commitment to wellness and workouts from their neighbor days continues to influence their daily routine. Rachel here, continuing our deep dive into the 4-year marriage of Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian, specifically looking at how the 50-year-old drummer and the 47-year-old reality star handle their nightly routine.
Bianca jumping in here at this quiet hour to say that while some folks might roll their eyes at famous couples sharing relationship advice, taking accountability for missing a text about lunch is remarkably down to earth for people living in Calabasas mansions.
Dee here, adding that their team shared how this strict no bedtime angry rule is just one of the ways they maintain a deep connection, especially when managing their blended family of 6 children and their young son Rocky 13.
What do you think about that balance, Dee, considering their long history as neighbors and workout buddies before they officially began dating in 2021?
Dee here again, noting that their years of friendship really built a foundation of trust before they went on to have 3 wedding ceremonies, from the unlicensed Las Vegas chapel to Santa Barbara and their lavish celebration in Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana.
Samantha from Nashville writes into our live stream, I cannot believe they actually hash out silly text arguments late at night when they have a toddler and teenagers asleep in the house. How do they even stay awake?
Rachel here, reacting to Samantha's great point, because when you are 50 and 47, exhaustion is very real, but so is the maturity that comes with past relationships and surviving major life events like his recovery from the 28 plane crash.
Bianca here, laughing because Samantha is so right that most couples just want to pass out asleep, but Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian have the luxury of separate massive properties in Calabasas to take space when things get too heated.
Dee here, confirming that while Barker's Mediterranean-style home spans 9,250 square feet with 7 bedrooms, it sits just a stone's throw from Kardashian's 11,700 square foot mansion, which underwent major renovations to fit their blended family.
Before we explore how fans across social media are reacting to these domestic details right now, let's remember that their shared journey through IVF to welcome son Rocky 13 in November 23 definitely puts minor daily misunderstandings about text messages into perspective. Rachel here, picking right back up in the quiet hours of the night to look at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian balance their famous no bedtime angry rule with the sheer logistics of managing 2 sprawling properties in Calabasas.
Bianca here, laughing because while people online love to debate whether clearing up a missed text message about lunch at midnight is realistic, having 9,250 square feet on one side and 11,700 square feet right down the street definitely gives everyone involved plenty of room to breathe.
Dee here, confirming from the reporting that Barker's Mediterranean-style estate features 7 bedrooms, a home theater, a wine cellar, and a gym, which certainly comes in handy when you are balancing their blended family of 6 children alongside their youngest son, Rocky 13, born in November 23.
What do you make of the fact, Bianca, that their long history as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before they officially began dating in 2021 laid such a solid foundation of trust for these daily communication habits?
Bianca here, pointing out that when you have known someone for years as just a friend and workout partner, long before those three famous wedding ceremonies in Las Vegas, Santa Barbara, and Portofino, you already know how they tick. So a simple misunderstanding about a text message isn't going to rattle a 4-year marriage.
D here, adding that their shared journey through multiple rounds of IVF to welcome little Rocky definitely puts minor daily miscommunications into perspective, showing just how deeply committed they are to working through challenges together.
Before we check in on how viewers are reacting to this balance of structure and space, let's remember that Barker, at 50 years old, and Kardashian, at 43, have both navigated major life chapters, including his recovery from the 28 plane crash, which naturally brings a different level of maturity to resolving household friction.
D here, noting that while some online commentators have questioned whether airing out petty grievances late at night is practical, the couple's emphasis on taking personal accountability, like Barker admitting he missed a text right away, is what keeps them feeling connected.
Bianca here, smiling, because whether you live in a massive gated community in California or a standard suburban street, remembering to say you are sorry for missing a lunch message is a pretty solid strategy for keeping the peace.
Rachel here, leaving that exact thought hanging in the air as we look closer at how their blended family thrives across those two massive properties. Rachel here, keeping this late-night conversation rolling as we look at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian manage the practical side of their 4-year marriage alongside their blended family of 6 children.
Bianca here, still chuckling at the idea of owning 2 massive properties in Calabasas, just to make sure you have enough personal square footage when you need to cool off after missing a text about lunch.
D here, reminding everyone that their current living arrangement has Travis's 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style home serving as their main base, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion undergoes that major family-focused renovation.
Rachel here, pointing out to Dee and Bianca how fascinating it is that 2 people who were neighbors and workout buddies for years before dating in 2021 still rely on such intentional boundaries to keep things running smoothly.
Bianca here, saying that whether you walk down the aisle in a Las Vegas chapel, a Santa Barbara courthouse, or that lavish Portofino estate with Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana, daily life still comes down to things like owning up to a slow text message.
D here, noting that their shared history, including supporting each other through IVF and welcoming their son Rocky 13 in November 2023, gives them a maturity that helps put minor daily misunderstandings into perspective.
Rachel here, thinking about how 50-year-old Travis and 47-year-old Kourtney balance all of that history while managing Landon, Alabama, Atiana, Mason, Penelope, and Rain under one roof, or rather, across 2 very close properties.
Bianca here, adding that having separate spaces within the same gated community is probably the ultimate secret weapon for any couple with a bustling household.
D here, noting that the statement from Travis emphasizing accountability, like admitting right away when a text gets missed, shows that no issue is too small to talk through before turning off the lights.
Rachel here, leaving that exact late-night thought right out there as we keep exploring how long-term friendships often turn into the strongest partnerships. Rachel here, keeping our late-night conversation rolling right along as we dive deeper into 50-year-old Travis Barker and 47-year-old Kourtney Kardashian. Because when you look at their 4-year marriage, it is all about those little daily habits that keep them grounded.
Bianca here, and honestly, the idea of never going to bed angry sounds exhausting until you realize they are just talking about simple things like missed text messages about lunch plans.
D here, noting that Travis specifically pointed out how taking accountability right away, like admitting he didn't see a message immediately, stops a tiny misunderstanding from turning into a big nighttime ordeal.
Rachel here, wondering what you make of that, Bianca, given how hectic their lives must be with a blended family of 6 children under control across their 2 Calabasas properties.
Bianca here, saying that having massive properties just a stone's throw apart in an exclusive gated community is probably the ultimate luxury when you need 5 minutes to breathe before hashing things out. Hi everyone, this is Liam, watching from Austin, and I just wanted to say that if my wife and I tried to resolve every little text message before sleeping, we would never sleep at all. But maybe having a 7-bedroom Mediterranean-style mansion makes it a bit easier.
Rachel here, smiling at Liam from Austin because he hits on the exact reality check we all need at 3 in the morning.
Dee here, adding that Liam is not alone in feeling that way, though Travis and Kourtney's long history as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before they started dating in 2021 definitely gave them a unique foundation of trust.
Bianca here, reminding everyone that before they were even a couple, they spent years running together and sharing a dedication to wellness, which probably taught them how to communicate long before they ever walked down any of their 3 wedding aisles.
Rachel here, thinking back to those 3 unforgettable ceremonies, from the unlicensed chapel in Las Vegas back in April 22 to the legal paperwork in Santa Barbara and that lavish Italian celebration in Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana.
Dee here, noting that their shared journey through IVF and welcoming their son Rocky 13 in November 2023 also puts every minor daily annoyance into a much broader, more mature perspective.
Bianca here, agreeing that when you have built a life through that much shared history, owning separate properties in the same neighborhood just gives you the physical space to live by your own rules without stepping on each other's toes.
Rachel here, leaving that exact thought right out there as we consider how long-standing friendships often turn into the most resilient partnerships. Rachel here, keeping our late-night conversation flowing as we look at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian handled the little bumps in the road during their 4-year marriage. And Bianca, you were just pointing out how having that kind of communication rule changes everything when you have 6 children under one roof.
Bianca here, and honestly, hearing Travis explain how they clear the air over something as minor as a missed text message about lunch makes you realize how grounded they actually are, especially considering they lived just a stone's throw away from each other in Calabasas for years before they ever started dating in 2021.
Dee here, jumping in with the details from that recent interview where the 50-year-old Blink 1982 drummer emphasized that taking accountability right away, even saying, "Oh babe, I'm sorry, I didn't see your text," is what keeps them feeling connected before they turn off the lights.
Rachel here, and Dee, what is so fascinating about that is how it contrasts with the whirlwind nature of their public life, from their unofficial 2 in the morning wedding in Las Vegas back in April 2022 to that lavish celebration in Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana.
Bianca here, laughing because while the 3 wedding ceremonies including the legal paperwork in Santa Barbara made all the glossy magazine covers, the real secret to their longevity seems to come from their long history as workout buddies who shared a deep love for wellness long before they ever walked down any aisle.
Dee here, confirming that their shared dedication to health and fitness was actually the foundation of their friendship as neighbors in Calabasas, which certainly helped them navigate the intense emotional roller coaster of their shared IVF journey before welcoming their son Rocky 13 in November 2023.
Rachel here, reminding everyone just how much history they brought into this marriage, including their blended family with Kourtney's 3 children, Mason, Penelope, and Rain with Scott Disick, and Travis's 2 children, Landon and Alabama, with ex-wife Shanna Moakler, plus remaining close with Atiana De La Hoya.
Bianca here, thinking about how having massive properties in Calabasas, like Travis's 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style home where they currently live, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion undergoes major renovations, gives them the literal physical space they sometimes need to cool down before they follow that strict no bedtime angry rule.
Dee here, adding that, as Kourtney explained on their family's reality show, updating her property was specifically designed to accommodate their large blended family, proving that everyday domestic logistics required just as much compromise as late-night emotional check-ins.
Rachel here, leaving that exact thought right out there as we consider how even the most high-profile couples rely on surprisingly simple, old-school communication habits to keep their relationships strong. Rachel here, keeping this late-night conversation rolling as we look at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian navigate their 4-year marriage with that very straightforward communication rule we were just discussing.
Bianca here, and honestly, Hearing Travis talk about taking accountability for something as minor as missing a text about meeting for lunch just shows how grounded they are, despite having 3 different wedding ceremonies and living in massive Calabasas estate.
Dee here, jumping in with what Travis actually shared about their mindset, emphasizing that airing out even the smallest misunderstandings before going to sleep is what keeps them connected, especially when managing their busy blended family of 6 children.
Rachel here, wondering what you think about this, Dee, because as our viewer Marcus from Chicago pointed out earlier in the show, applying a strict no bedtime angry rule when you are exhausted after a long day is easier said than done.
Dee here, agreeing with Marcus entirely, because as Travis and Kourtney's relationship timeline shows, they built years of trust as longtime neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas long before they started dating in 2021.
Bianca here, laughing because if you have ever tried to hash out a text message miscommunication at midnight after wrangling a toddler like their son Rocky 13, you know why having separate properties like their Mediterranean-style home and her undergoing renovation mansion in Calabasas is absolute gold.
Rachel here, pointing right to that exact logistical advantage, because having those huge spaces, like Travis's 9,250 square foot home, gives them the literal room to take a breather before following that rule of never turning the lights off angry.
Dee here, adding that as Kourtney mentioned on their family reality show, updating her 11,700 square foot property was specifically designed to accommodate their large blended family, proving that everyday domestic logistics required just as much compromise as late-night emotional check-ins.
Bianca here, thinking about how their shared history, from their years as workout buddies to their journey through multiple IVF treatments and welcoming baby Rocky 13, really puts minor daily arguments about lunch plans into a completely different perspective.
Rachel here, leaving that exact thought right out there, as we consider how even the most high-profile couples rely on surprisingly simple, old-school communication habits to keep their relationship strong. Rachel here, keeping our late-night conversation rolling as we look right back at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian balance their 4-year marriage with the realities of managing a massive blended family.
Bianca here, and honestly, hearing Travis talk about owning up to missing a text message about meeting for lunch just shows that even rock stars dealing with everyday communication hiccups have to put their egos aside.
Dee here, reporting that their commitment to hashing out minor misunderstandings before going to sleep has become one of their most talked about relationship habits since he shared those details in that mid-August interview.
Rachel here, turning to our live feed because viewers are staying up late with us. What do you see on the screen, Dee?
Hi everyone, I am Chloe, writing in from Minneapolis at 3 in the morning, and I just wanted to say that hearing Travis and Kourtney talk about their no bedtime angry rule makes me feel so seen, because my husband and I argue over text all the time.
Rachel here, thanking Chloe from Minneapolis for jumping into our live stream at this hour, because that text message scenario Travis mentioned is something every couple in a long-term relationship instantly recognizes.
Bianca here, laughing because if you tried to resolve every single little missed text message when you have 6 children running around a household, you would genuinely never sleep a wink.
Dee here, adding that their ability to step away when needed is probably helped quite a bit by the sheer scale of those properties in Calabasas, where Travis has his 9,250 square foot home and Kourtney is renovating her 11,700 square foot mansion.
Rachel here, pointing right to that exact logistical advantage, because having those massive spaces gives them the literal room to take a breather before following that rule of never turning the lights off angry.
Bianca here, thinking about how their shared history, from their years as workout buddies to their journey through multiple IVF treatments and welcoming baby Rocky 13, really puts minor daily arguments about lunch plans into a completely different perspective.
Rachel here, leaving that exact thought right out there as we consider how even the most high-profile couples rely on surprisingly simple, old-school communication habits to keep their relationship strong. Rachel here, keeping this late-night conversation rolling right along as we dive deeper into the domestic habits of Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian.
Bianca here, and honestly, hearing Travis talk about texting mix-ups and lunch plans just makes them feel so remarkably normal, despite the mega mansions and rock star status.
Dee here, reminding everyone that while they might argue over missed text messages, they are doing it against the backdrop of a massive blended family and properties spanning thousands of square bare feet in Calabasas.
Rachel here, pointing out to Dee and Bianca how fascinating it is that a 50-year-old punk rock icon and a reality star royalty are relying on such grounded, old-school communication rules to protect their 4-year marriage.
Bianca here, laughing because the alternative of going to sleep angry with 6 children running around the house sounds like absolute chaos anyway.
Dee here, adding that their ability to step away and take a breather when needed is deeply supported by having those separate spaces, like Travis's 9,250 square foot home, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion finishes its major renovations.
Rachel here, bringing in our viewer Chloe from Minneapolis, who wrote in earlier tonight saying she completely relates to the late-night text message misunderstandings.
Bianca here, telling Chloe she is definitely not alone. Because even when you have been friends for years as neighbors and workout buddies before finally getting together, everyday communication can still hit a minor speed bump.
Dee here, noting that their shared wellness background and long history together clearly give them the resilience to handle those little moments before they turn into anything major.
Rachel here, leaving that thought right out there as we continue looking at how high-profile couples maintain their day-to-day connection. Rachel here, still wandering through those quiet hours of the night with you all. And Bianca, when you look at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian have structured their lives across those 2 properties in Calabasas, it really makes you appreciate how they balance togetherness and independence.
Bianca here, and honestly, Rachel, having a 9,250 square foot home right next door to an 11,700 square foot mansion while it undergoes major renovations is the ultimate luxury for making sure you never step on each other's toes when you just need a moment to breathe.
Dee here, jumping in to remind us that before they were even a couple, they spent years as neighbors and workout buddies in that exact same exclusive gated community, which means they already knew how each other operated long before they ever walked down any aisle, or all 3 aisles, depending on how you count their Vegas, Santa Barbara, and Portofino celebrations.
Rachel here, loving that Dee brought up their history because that foundation of trust from their friendship is probably why a simple miscommunication about a text message or a missed lunch date doesn't turn into a multi-day blowout.
That is so true, Rachel. Because when you are 50 years old like Travis and 47 like Kourtney, you just do not have the energy to waste on holding petty grudges over whether someone replied to your phone ping within 5 minutes.
Dee here, pointing out that what Travis shared about taking accountability right away, literally saying, quote, "Oh babe, I take accountability. I'm sorry, I didn't see your text right away," shows a level of emotional maturity that a lot of couples take decades to figure out.
Rachel here, checking in with our viewer Marcus from Chicago, who messaged us just a few minutes ago saying that his own household has a similar no bedtime angry rule, though usually it gets tested by who forgot to take the laundry out rather than missed lunch dates.
Bianca here, telling Marcus he is definitely not alone in that because domestic chores are the true battlefield of modern romance long before you ever have to worry about managing a blended family of 6 children like Travis and Kourtney do.
Dee here, adding that when you factor in their joint son Rocky 13, plus Kourtney's 3 children with Scott Disick, Mason, Penelope, and Rain, and Travis's 2 children with Shanna Moakler, Landon, and Alabama, alongside former stepdaughter Atiana De La Hoya, the logistics of daily family life require every ounce of communication discipline they have.
Rachel here, thinking about how their shared wellness background and that intense shared journey through IVF treatments to welcome little Rocky in November 23 must have built an emotional armor that makes these daily check-ins second nature.
Bianca here, laughing because when you have been through medical trials and the whirlwind of 3 separate wedding ceremonies, including that unforgettable Italian celebration at Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana's Villa Olivetta, a late-night chat about a missed lunch text probably feels like a walk in the park.
Dee here, noting that their commitment to never turning the lights off without feeling connected is not just a cute soundbite from an interview, but a deliberate daily practice supported by the sheer physical space of their Calabasas estates.
Rachel here, leaving that exact thought right on the table as we keep exploring how high-profile couples navigate the fine line between public romance and private domestic realities in the dead of night. Rachel here, keeping our late-night conversation flowing as the clock ticks deep into the night. And D, let us bring it right back to how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian actually managed to live by that strict no bedtime angry rule while running a massive blended household of 6 children.
D here, pointing out that what makes their routine so fascinating is how practical they keep it, focusing on everyday little misunderstandings, like missing a lunch text or miscommunicating about a schedule, and taking immediate accountability before turning the lights out.
Bianca here, laughing because while it sounds very zen on paper, when you have teenagers and a toddler running around a 9,250 square foot Mediterranean estate in Calabasas, resolving every single minor gripe before sleep probably requires military-grade patience and a very strong cup of herbal tea.
Rachel here nodding at that, because having that kind of physical space, especially with Barker's primary residence spanning over 9,000 square feet and featuring 7 bedrooms, a tennis court, and a massive pool, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot home undergoes major renovations, definitely gives everyone room to breathe when tempers flare.
D here, adding that their long history as neighbors and workout buddies long before they made their relationship official in 2021 clearly laid down a foundation of mutual trust that helps them navigate these domestic details without letting minor annoyances snowball into major arguments.
Oh, here, sending us a message from Sarah in Denver, who says, I cannot imagine staying up to hash out every little text message delay when you have 6 kids asleep in the house. Do they ever just wave the white flag and agree to be tired?
Rachel here, reading Sarah's message and smiling because that is the exact real-world question everyone watching right now is asking themselves in the middle of the night.
Bianca here, jumping in to tell Sarah that she is completely right. Because while Travis Barker, who turned 50 recently and survived that horrific 2008 plane crash, might value that strict old-school accountability, sometimes exhaustion just wins, and you have to roll over and finish the conversation over morning coffee instead.
Rachel here, considering how their shared wellness background and that intense shared journey through IVF treatments to welcome little son Rocky 13 in November 23 must have built an emotional armor that makes these daily check-ins second nature.
D here, noting that their commitment to never turning the lights off without feeling connected is not just a cute soundbite from an interview, but a deliberate daily practice supported by the sheer physical space of their Calabasas estates.
Rachel here, leaving that exact thought right on the table as we keep exploring how high-profile couples navigate the fine line between public romance and private domestic realities in the dead of night. Rachel here, keeping our late-night studio lights glowing at 84 minutes past the hour as we dive right back into the fascinating domestic rhythms of Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian. Because, Bianca, when you look at how they manage their household across those 2 massive Calabasas properties, that physical space seems to be the ultimate secret weapon for executing their strict no-bedtime angry rule.
Bianca here, and honestly, Rachel, having a 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style mansion with 7 bedrooms, a game room, and a tennis court definitely gives you room to breathe when you need a moment to cool off before talking things out.
D here, jumping in with the reporting to remind everyone that while they are currently living primarily in Travis's estate, which he purchased way back in 2007 for $9.5 million, Kourtney's own 11,750 square foot mansion, bought back in 2014, has been undergoing that major overhaul to better accommodate their massive blended family of 6 children.
Rachel here, exactly, D. And that blended family dynamic is precisely why their shared rule about never going to bed angry over minor misunderstandings, like missing a text about meeting for lunch, matters so much when you are managing sons Mason and Rain, daughter Penelope, stepkids Landon and Alabama, and their joint son Rocky 13, who was born in November 2023.
Bianca here, laughing because while Travis, who just hit 50 years old and survived that harrowing 2008 plane crash, might preach old-school accountability, sometimes at 2 in the morning with 6 kids asleep down the hall, you just want to surrender to exhaustion and finish the debate over morning coffee.
D here, noting that their shared wellness background and years of being neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before they officially hard-launched their romance in early 2021 definitely laid a rock-solid foundation of trust before they ever walked down any of their 3 wedding aisles.
Rachel here, and what a trio of wedding ceremonies those were, starting with that unlicensed 2 a.m. chapel service in Las Vegas in April 2022, followed by their legal paperwork in a Santa Barbara clerk's office, and finally that lavish Italian celebration in Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana.
Bianca here, reminding everyone watching at home that even with custom corset mini dresses and elaborate Virgin Mary veils, everyday life still boils down to texting mishaps and owning up to them before turning off the bedside lamp.
Rachel here, leaving that exact thought right on the table as we continue exploring how high-profile couples maintain deep personal connections through the quiet hours of the night. Rachel here, keeping our late-night gaze fixed squarely on Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian's 4-year marriage. And Bianca, when 50-year-old rock stars start talking about owning up to missed text messages before turning off the bedside lamp, it really grounds the whole pop-punk aesthetic in everyday domestic reality.
Bianca here, and honestly, the idea of a 50-year-old drummer hashing out why he missed a lunch date over text before going to sleep is simultaneously adorable and the most exhausting-sounding relationship homework imaginable, especially when you factor in a blended family of 6 children under one roof.
Dee here, jumping in with the logistical side of that household. Because remember, they are currently living in Travis's 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style estate in Calabasas, while Kourtney's even larger 11,700 square foot mansion undergoes that major renovation she detailed on her family's reality show.
Rachel here, reminding everyone just how crucial having 2 separate properties right next door to each other in that exclusive gated community really is when you need a little physical space to cool down before executing that strict no bedtime angry rule.
Exactly, Rachel. Because if you share a wall with someone and you are stubbornly refusing to close your eyes until you resolve a debate about unanswered text messages, having 9,000 square feet to wander around probably stops you from going completely bonkers.
Dee here, pointing out that their long history as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas, long before they hard-launched their romance in early 2021, definitely gave them a head start on understanding each other's quirks before they ever walked down any of those 3 wedding aisles.
Rachel here, looking back at that whirlwind trilogy of ceremonies, starting with the unlicensed 2 a.m. chapel service in Las Vegas in April 2022, moving to the legal paperwork in Santa Barbara, and culminating in that lavish Portofino celebration with Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana.
Bianca here, and let us not forget the sheer visual commitment of that Portofino wedding, with Kourtney wearing that one-of-a-kind lace and satin corset mini dress and a sweeping veil embroidered with the Virgin Mary, perfectly matching Travis's head tattoo.
Dee here, noting that their shared wellness background and years of running together really built a rock-solid foundation of trust that helps them navigate everything from minor miscommunication about lunch plans to the heavy emotional roller coaster of their shared IVF journey and welcoming their son, Rocky 13, in November 23.
Rachel here, holding right on to that exact thought as we consider how shared life experiences put daily text message grievances into perspective when the bedroom lights finally go down. Rachel here, diving straight back into our late-night look at Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian, and how that famous 4-year marriage actually functions behind closed doors.
Bianca here, and, you know, when you hear about 50-year-old Travis talking about owning up to a delayed text message about lunch, it is honestly so refreshingly normal for a rock star.
Dee here, reminding everyone that the statement he gave made it very clear that no disagreement is treated as too small to handle before they close their eyes for the night.
What did you make of that detail, Bianca, given how hectic their lives must be with a massive blended family of 6 children under one roof?
Bianca here again, and I think it is brilliant, Rachel, because letting little things fester, like wondering if your partner is meeting you for lunch, can turn into a mountain by morning if you do not just say you are sorry right away.
Dee here, pointing out that their long history as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before they started dating in 2021 really laid down that foundation of trust we keep talking about.
Let us check in with our live viewer feed for a quick moment here.
Hi, Rachel, Bianca, and Dee. My name is Hannah. I am watching from Columbus. And I just have to say that my husband and I tried the exact same no bedtime angry rule. But when you are both exhausted at 2 in the morning, it is so hard not to just roll over and go to sleep anyway.
Rachel here, and Hannah, you are speaking for half the planet right there, because accountability takes actual energy when you are dog-tired.
Bianca here, laughing because Travis and Kourtney have the luxury of separate properties in Calabasas if things get truly heated, which definitely helps when you need a little breathing room.
Dee here, adding that while they currently live primarily in Travis's 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style estate bought back in 2007, Kourtney's own 11,700 square foot mansion nearby has been undergoing major renovations to accommodate their blended family.
Rachel here, holding on to that exact thought about how physical space and old-school communication rules keep a high-profile marriage grounded. Rachel here, and as we push right past the 88-minute mark of our night, Dee, let us circle back to what we were just unpacking about Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian's domestic routine.
Dee here, and looking at how they manage this balance between their intense public lives and their private rules at home, it really comes down to the sheer history they share as longtime neighbors in Calabasas before things ever turned romantic back in 2021.
Bianca here, laughing because it is easy to talk about resolving every little thing before sleep when you are sitting in a Mediterranean-style estate bought back in 2007, but when you have 6 children running around a blended household, text message misunderstandings about lunch are probably just the tip of the iceberg.
Rachel here, though Bianca makes a fair point about the chaos of a 6-child household, Travis actually stressed that even those tiny communications, like missing a text about a lunch date, are what they choose to tackle head-on so they do not drift apart.
Dee here, adding that his exact phrasing in that recent interview highlighted taking accountability right away, saying things like, "Oh, babe, I take accountability. I am sorry, I did not see your text right away," which shows a level of maturity that perhaps comes with reaching 50 years of age.
Bianca here, totally agreeing with that, because let us not forget that before they tied the knot across 3 separate ceremonies, from that wild 2 a.m. Las Vegas chapel moment without a license to Santa Barbara and that massive Dolce & Gabbana celebration in Portofino, they were simply workout buddies who shared a deep mutual love for wellness.
Rachel here, holding on to that exact wellness foundation, because their shared journey through multiple rounds of IVF to welcome their son Rocky 13 in November 23 certainly gives them a perspective that keeps minor daily disagreements from blowing out of proportion.
Dee here, and speaking of perspective, it is also worth noting how physical architecture plays a role here, since they currently share Travis's 9,250 square foot property, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion nearby undergoes that major renovation to accommodate the whole family.
Bianca here, raising my eyebrows at the luxury of having 2 massive mansions side by side in an exclusive gated community when you need just 5 minutes of breathing room after a long day.
Rachel here, and right on that note of physical space and late-night communication, let us bring in another voice from our live feed before we move forward. Hi Rachel, Bianca, and Dee. My name is Jason. I am watching from San Diego, and I want to know if you guys actually think a strict no bedtime angry rule is realistic for couples who have been together for 4 years, or if it is just something that sounds great in a magazine interview. Rachel here, and Jason, that is the million-dollar question right there, because maintaining that level of intentional connection after the honeymoon phase is where the real work begins. Rachel here, keeping us right in the rhythm of this late-night broadcast as we continue unpacking the domestic realities of Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian. Because Dee, looking at how they manage their household of 6 children while keeping to that strict no bedtime angry rule, it really makes you wonder how much the physical architecture of their Calabasas properties actually plays into keeping the peace.
Bianca here. And honestly, Rachel, having nearly 10,000 square feet in his Mediterranean-style estate to retreat to, when a text message goes unanswered for 5 minutes, sounds less like a strict discipline rule and more like an absolute masterclass in marital preservation.
D here, and exactly, Bianca, because remember that while they currently share Travis's 9,250 square foot property with its game room, wine cellar, and massive gym, Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion right next door is undergoing that major renovation to make it even more accommodating for their blended family.
Rachel here, and that shared history as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas long before they began dating in 2021 really laid the groundwork for this level of communication, doesn't it, Dee?
D here, and it really did, Rachel, because as Travis pointed out, their shared love for wellness and running together years ago meant they already had a deep mutual trust before they ever tied the knot across those 3 unforgettable wedding ceremonies in Las Vegas, Santa Barbara, and Portofino.
Bianca here, raising my eyebrows because while 3 weddings in 2 months is certainly dramatic, coming back down to earth with a missed lunch text and having to own up to it over a shared cup of tea at midnight is where the real 4-year marriage test actually happens.
Rachel here, and speaking of how couples navigate these exact moments after hours, let us bring in another voice from our live feed before we move forward. Hi Rachel, Bianca, and Dee. My name is Marcus, I am watching from Chicago, and I want to know if you guys think having 2 massive mansions in the same gated community is the ultimate secret to avoiding petty arguments, or if it just creates more rooms to hide in. Rachel here, and Marcus, that is the million-dollar question right there. Because whether you have 7 bedrooms or just 1 hallway, accountability is what it ultimately comes down to.
Bianca here, and Marcus makes a brilliant point. Because when you have children like Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and Little Rocky 13, all under various roofs or visiting, avoiding a late-night argument takes real tactical deployment of square footage.
D here, and it is also worth noting how their shared IVF journey and navigating life after Travis's harrowing 2008 plane crash put these tiny daily misunderstandings about text messages into a completely different perspective.
Rachel here, and that perspective is precisely what keeps them grounded, even as they balance their public lives with these very old-school rules of accountability at home. Rachel here, and as we push right through the middle of the night on this 97th minute of our live broadcast, Bianca, let us remember how these 2 actually started out as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas long before they tied the knot in 2022 across those 3 separate ceremonies in Las Vegas, Santa Barbara, and Portofino.
Bianca here, and those 3 weddings are absolute legend, Rachel, because you go from an unlicensed chapel in Vegas at 2 in the morning straight to a gorgeous courthouse in Santa Barbara, and then over to Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana's Italian estate with all those religious symbols and the custom veil.
D here, and let us not forget that while they have all those extravagant memories and their massive properties in Calabasas, including his 9,250 square foot Mediterranean home and her 11,700 square foot mansion currently undergoing renovations, it all boils down to very practical, old-school daily communication rules, like never going to bed angry over a missed text about lunch.
Oh, hello everyone. My name is Fiona, and I am watching live from Columbus right now at 3 in the morning with my baby sleeping right next to me. And I just wanted to say that hearing Travis Barker talk about taking accountability for missing a text message makes me feel so seen because my husband and I argue about household chores at midnight all the time.
Rachel here, and Fiona, thank you so much for watching from Columbus in the middle of the night, because your exact household reality is why this story is resonating with millions of people right now as they balance 6 children in a blended family and their son Rocky 13.
Bianca here, and Fiona is completely right. Because when you have a blended family involving Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and Little Rocky, avoiding a late-night argument takes real tactical deployment of square footage and a whole lot of maturity, especially with Travis turning 50 years old and reflecting on his incredible survival of that harrowing 2008 plane crash.
D here, and that perspective from his plane crash and their shared, challenging IVF journey really does put minor daily misunderstandings about about text messages and lunch plans into a completely different light, proving that their foundation of trust was built over years of genuine friendship.
Rachel here and Dee, that wellness background and their shared history of working out together in Calabasas before dating in 2021 is precisely why their strict rule of resolving every little issue before turning off the lights actually works for them in their 4-year marriage. Rachel here, continuing our deep dive into the 4-year marriage of Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian, because when you look at how they manage their household, the physical space provided by their 2 properties in Calabasas is just half the equation, right, Bianca?
Bianca here. And absolutely, Rachel, because having a 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style home that Travis bought back in 2007 for $9.5 million, plus Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion nearby, currently undergoing major renovations for their blended family, gives everyone room to breathe when things get tense.
Dee here, and what is so fascinating about that setup, Bianca, is how they intentionally use that physical square footage alongside their strict rule of never going to sleep angry, even if it is just hashing out a minor miscommunication about text messages or lunch plans.
Rachel here, exactly, Dee, because as Travis shared in that recent interview published in August, taking accountability for something as simple as not replying to a text right away is how they maintain that deep connection, building on the strong foundation they established years ago as workout buddies and neighbors in Calabasas before they officially started dating in 2021.
Bianca here, and it is pretty wild to contrast those everyday relatable arguments about lunch dates with the sheer scale of their relationship history, including their 3 distinct wedding ceremonies in 2022, starting with that unlicensed 2 a.m. chapel stop in Las Vegas, moving to the legal courthouse paperwork in Santa Barbara, and culminating in that ultra-lavish celebration at Villa Olivetta in Portofino with Dolce & Gabbana.
Dee here, and that Italian wedding was truly a visual feast, featuring those custom corset mini dresses inspired by 1960s Italian lingerie, hand-embroidered flowers, and a massive veil featuring the image of the Virgin Mary, alongside the words family, loyalty, and respect, echoing one of Travis's head tattoos.
Rachel here, and Dee, all of that romantic pageantry and those emotional wedding details sit right alongside the very real, grounded challenges of raising their blended family of 6 children, Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, Alabama, and their youngest, son Rocky 13, who was born in November 23 after their shared, challenging IVF journey.
Bianca here, and when you factor in Travis turning 50 years old and reflecting on his incredible survival of that harrowing 2008 plane crash, it really does put minor daily misunderstandings about text messages into a completely different perspective, proving that their mutual accountability is rooted in genuine life experience.
Dee here, and we actually had viewer Maya from Portland writing in just moments ago, asking how couples with such busy households realistically find the energy for late-night conflict resolution when everyone is completely exhausted.
Rachel here, and Maya, that is the exact question everyone is asking online today. Because while their rules sound simple in theory, enforcing it across a bustling Calabasas estate takes a remarkable amount of patience and maturity from both of them. Rachel here, continuing our deep dive into the domestic dynamics of Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian. Because Dee, when you look at how they balance this strict no bedtime angry rule with the sheer logistics of managing a blended family of 6 children, it really highlights how intentional they have to be with their time.
Bianca here, and honestly, the fact that they spent years as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before ever dating in 2021 gives them such a solid foundation of trust, meaning they already knew each other's quirks and wellness habits long before they ever walked down any of their 3 wedding aisles.
Dee here, and exactly, Bianca, because as we were discussing with viewer Maya from Portland just a moment ago, having those massive properties in Calabasas, including Travis's Mediterranean-style estate with its 7 bedrooms, pool, and tennis court, gives them the vital physical space they need to actually take a breather and step back, before trying to hash out minor miscommunications late at night.
Rachel here, and D, that physical square footage is no small detail when you factor in that they are currently using his 9,250 square foot home, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion undergoes that major overhaul to better accommodate their bustling household, which includes their young son, Rocky 13.
Bianca here. And it is honestly refreshing to hear 50-year-old Travis, who survived that harrowing 2008 plane crash and built an iconic career as the drummer for Blink-182, openly admitting to taking accountability over something as trivial as not texting back immediately about lunch plans.
D here, and we actually had viewer Marcus from Chicago writing in just now, asking if their shared background in wellness and fitness from their days as workout buddies is the secret sauce that helps them maintain such high levels of mutual accountability and patience under pressure.
Rachel here, and Marcus, that wellness background certainly plays a massive role, especially when you look back at the immense emotional resilience they demonstrated together through their challenging IVF journey before welcoming little Rocky in November of 23 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles.
Bianca here, and when you've gone through something as heavy as fertility treatments and blending a family with Scott Disick and Shanna Moakler's children, Mason, Penelope, Rain, Landon, and Alabama, a delayed text message about a lunch date probably feels like a walk in the park, but addressing it right away still keeps that core connection alive before the lights go out.
D here, and let's not forget that their romance was hard-launched right after Valentine's Day in 2021, quickly followed by that romantic beach proposal in Montecito, California, in October of that same year, setting the stage for their whirlwind trio of wedding ceremonies.
Rachel here, and those 3 ceremonies, starting with that unlicensed 2 a.m. chapel service in Las Vegas in April 2022, moving to the legal paperwork at the Santa Barbara clerk's office in May, and culminating in that extravagant Italian celebration at Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana's Villa Olivetta, truly showed how much they love to celebrate their bond.
Bianca here, and speaking of that Italian celebration, Kourtney wearing that custom lace and satin corset mini dress with the hand-embroidered Virgin Mary veil featuring Travis's head tattoo words family, loyalty, respect, proves that even with all the rock and roll pageantry, their commitment to traditional values remains front and center.
D here, and viewer Sarah from Denver just chimed in online, wondering if other celebrity couples could benefit from adopting this exact same old-school communication style instead of letting small digital misunderstandings fester overnight.
Rachel here, and staying on that deep foundation of trust that Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian built over all those years as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before things turned romantic back in 2021. Let us look at how they actually handle daily life now with a blended family of 6 children and their little boy, Rocky 13.
Bianca here. And honestly, Rachel, having those 2 separate massive properties in Calabasas, including Travis's Mediterranean-style 9,250 square foot home with the home theater and gym, while Kourtney's 11,700 square foot mansion undergoes that major renovation, is probably the real secret weapon to keeping a marriage strong when you have a bustling household.
D here, and exactly Bianca, because the statement emphasized that while they are huge believers in never going to bed angry over even the smallest miscommunication, Travis also specifically acknowledged the importance of simply giving each other physical space when needed.
What did you find on that side of things, Dee, regarding how they process minor daily frictions like a missed text message about lunch?
D here, and the reporting showed that Travis explained how they will air out even the simplest misunderstandings, like not replying right away, so they can take accountability, say sorry, and never go to sleep feeling disconnected.
Bianca here, and it is honestly refreshing to hear a couple married for 4 years talk about taking accountability for something as mundane as text message response times, especially when you contrast it with all that rock and roll pageantry from their 3 wedding ceremonies. Viewer Jessica from Seattle just wrote in to say, honestly, the text message example is so real. My partner and I argue about lunch plans all the time, but we usually just fall asleep annoyed instead of fixing it.
That is such a sweet message from Jessica, and it really highlights why so many people are reacting to this interview. Because beneath the lavish Portofino celebrations and the Dolce & Gabbana veil featuring the Virgin Mary and those head tattoo words, They deal with the same tiny everyday hiccups as the rest of us.
Bianca here, but let us not forget that they also share a wellness background and went through an intense shared IVF journey before welcoming son Rocky 13 in November 23, which definitely gives you a different perspective on minor daily arguments.
Dee here, and the reports also reminded us that their blended family includes Kourtney's 3 children with Scott Disick, Mason, Penelope, and Rain, alongside Travis's 2 children with Shanna Moakler, Landon and Alabama, plus remaining close with former stepdaughter Atiana De La Hoya.
D. Looking at how they balance managing 6 children across those massive Calabasas properties while maintaining their strict communication rules, do the reports suggest how they find the energy for it all after all these years? Rachel here, keeping us right in the thick of it as we move through the middle of the night on our airwaves. And Bianca, when you look at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian balance their 4-year marriage with managing 6 children across those massive Calabasas properties, it really grounds everything we have been discussing about their communication rules.
Bianca here, and absolutely, Rachel, because while people might roll their eyes at famous couples sharing relationship tips, hearing Travis talk about owning up to a simple missed text message about meeting for lunch just makes them seem like any other couple trying to coordinate a chaotic household.
D here, and reinforcing what the reports highlighted from that interview, they really emphasize that no issue is considered too small to air out before they go to sleep, which comes straight from their shared background as longtime neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before they ever started dating back in 2021.
D. Looking back at their relationship timeline from those early days as workout partners all the way to their 3 distinct wedding ceremonies, from that unlicensed 2 a.m. chapel in Las Vegas to Santa Barbara and that lavish Portofino celebration with Dolce & Gabbana, do the reports mention how their shared wellness habits helped them build that foundational trust?
D reporting, and yes, the sources point out that their mutual love for fitness and wellness was one of the primary reasons they grew so close during all those years living near each other in Calabasas, which certainly helped them navigate intense challenges later on, including their shared and grueling IVF journey before welcoming their son Rocky 13 in November 23.
Bianca jumping in here because let us not forget that while they share that strong foundation, Travis also explicitly emphasized the importance of taking physical space when needed, which is entirely practical when you are living in a 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style home in an exclusive gated community while her larger mansion undergoes massive renovations for their blended family.
Rachel here, and that physical space must be an absolute lifesaver when you are managing a blended family that includes Kourtney's 3 children with Scott Disick, Mason, Penelope, and Rain, alongside Travis's 2 children with Shanna Moakler, Landon, and Alabama, plus remaining close with former stepdaughter Atiana De La Hoya.
D here, and those logistical details are precisely what viewers have been writing in about, including a note from Samantha in Nashville, who pointed out how realistic it is to need separate spaces in a busy house when everyone is completely exhausted at the end of the day.
Bianca here, exactly, Samantha, because no amount of romantic sunset beach proposals in Montecito or designer veils featuring the Virgin Mary can magically stop 2 tired adults from bickering over a missed text message, which is why having separate wings or even separate properties in Calabasas makes a strict no bedtime angry rule actually achievable in the real world.
Rachel here, exactly, Bianca. And as Travis approaches his 50th birthday with 4 years of marriage under his belt, it seems that letting go of stubbornness over minor misunderstandings is the real secret to keeping things strong. But D, do the latest updates give us any more insight into how they handle household chores alongside these communication rules? Rachel here, and building on Samantha from Nashville's great point about needing physical separation when you are totally exhausted, let us look at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian actually manage that in their daily routine. Because D, you were digging into their property setup in Calabasas, right?
D here, and that is right, Rachel, because while they have this strict no bedtime angry rule, they also have the luxury of space, as they currently live in Travis's Mediterranean-style home in Calabasas, a 9,250 square foot estate he bought back in 2000. and 7 for $9.5 million, while Kourtney's larger 11,700 square foot mansion undergoes major renovations to better fit their blended family.
Bianca here, and honestly, D, having 7 bedrooms, a game room, a home theater, and a tennis court definitely helps when you need a little breathing room after a disagreement about who forgot to answer a text message about lunch. But it also shows how practical their setup is.
Rachel here, exactly, Bianca. And as Travis approaches his 50th birthday with 4 years of marriage under his belt, that kind of maturity is essential when you are blending a family of 6 children, including their son Rocky 13, plus Kourtney's children Mason, Penelope, and Rain with Scott Disick, and Travis's children Landon and Alabama with Shanna Moakler. Not to mention his close bond with former stepdaughter Atiana De La Hoya.
D here, and we actually had a note come in from Liam in Austin, who wondered how a couple with so many moving parts manages to sit down and hash out every little misunderstanding before turning off the lights, pointing out that sometimes sleep just has to win.
Bianca here, Liam. Sleep usually wins for most of us. But Travis made a point in his recent interview to say that even minor things, like missing a text about meeting for lunch, get addressed so they do not go to sleep feeling disconnected from each other.
Rachel here, and that dedication really goes back to their long history as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before they officially started dating in 2021, which gave them years of friendship to build trust before they ever got engaged on that Montecito beach.
D here, and let us not forget that before they welcomed baby Rocky 13 in November 23 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, they went through multiple rounds of IVF treatments, which definitely tests a couple's communication and resilience on a completely different level.
Bianca here, D. Going through all of that together certainly puts a missed text message about lunch into perspective. And maybe that is why their 3 wedding ceremonies, from that unlicensed 2 a.m. chapel in Las Vegas in April 22, to the legal signing in Santa Barbara, and finally that lavish Portofino celebration with Dolce & Gabbana, felt so intensely celebratory for them.
Rachel here, absolutely, Bianca. And speaking of those celebrations, the intricate details of their Italian wedding, right down to the Virgin Mary embroidered on Kourtney's veil with the words family, loyalty, and respect, inspired by one of Travis's tattoos, showed just how deeply intertwined their lives and values really are. But D, looking at how they balance this old-school communication rule with their hectic schedules, do we know if they have other rules they follow at home? Rachel here, and as we push right through the night here on our 45th block, let us check in with our live chat because the messages are still pouring in from all over the map.
Sarah from Columbus writes, I cannot even picture hashing out text message misunderstandings at midnight when you are exhausted and have a blended family running around. But honestly, maybe having 2 separate mansions in Calabasas is the ultimate secret weapon for marital harmony. Bianca here, Sarah, and you are speaking absolute truth. Because let us be completely honest, sometimes the best way to never go to bed angry is simply to walk across the yard to your own 9,000 square foot Mediterranean estate while your partner stays in theirs.
D here, and exactly. Bianca, let us remember that they own 2 massive properties in that exclusive Calabasas gated community. Travis bought his 9,250 square foot home back in 2007 for $9.5 million, and Kourtney bought her 11,700 square foot mansion just down the road for $7.45 million in 2014, which she has recently been majorly renovating to accommodate their blended family of 6 children.
Rachel here, that physical space is such a fascinating logistical layer to their strict no bedtime angry rule. And D, thinking about how they transitioned from being longtime neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas before officially dating in 2021, do we know if their shared dedication to wellness played a big part in building that initial foundation of trust?
D here, absolutely, Rachel, because Travis recently opened up about how they used to work out and run together all the time before they were ever romantic, noting that it is amazing to be with someone who shares that exact same passion for wellness, which certainly helped lay the groundwork before they went through those multiple rounds of IVF and eventually welcomed their son, Rocky 13, in November 23 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles.
Bianca here, D. And it really puts into perspective how a couple who went through all of that together can still take public accountability over something as wonderfully mundane as a missed text message about meeting for lunch, proving that whether you are dealing with major life milestones or just sorting out daily calendar mix-ups, communication remains front and center for them.
Rachel here, completely Bianca. And looking back at how intensely they celebrated their union with 3 separate ceremonies, from that unlicensed 2 a.m. chapel in Las Vegas in April 22 to the legal signing in Santa Barbara and that lavish Portofino celebration with Dolce & Gabbana, featuring the Virgin Mary embroidered on Kourtney's veil, they clearly love making grand statements. But D, as we look closer at how they manage this bustling household of 6 kids, are there other daily routines they have shared? Rachel here, and as we continue through our late-night broadcast, looking closely at how Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian manage their household and their 4-year marriage, it is fascinating to see how a simple agreement about not going to bed angry plays out in real life. So D, when we look at the specifics he shared about resolving minor misunderstandings, what else did his recent interview highlight?
D here, and in that interview published in August, Travis actually broke down how mundane things like a missed text message about meeting for lunch get handled right away, with him saying that taking accountability and clearing the air before turning the lights off is what keeps them feeling connected.
Bianca here, and honestly, D, it is that kind of ordinary communication that grounds them, especially when you consider that before they became a couple in 2021, they spent years as neighbors and workout buddies in Calabasas, sharing a mutual love for wellness.
Rachel here, exactly Bianca, because that long history as friends really laid a strong foundation of trust before they ever got romantically involved, which certainly helped when they decided to blend their family of 6 children, including Kourtney's 3 kids with Scott Disick, Mason, Penelope, and Rain, and Travis's 2 children with Shanna Moakler, Landon and Alabama, alongside former stepdaughter Atiana de la Hoya, plus their joint son Rocky 13, born in November 23.
D here, and let's not forget how much logistics go into managing a blended family like that. Because while they used Travis's 9,250 square foot Mediterranean-style estate in Calabasas as their primary residence during the renovations on Kourtney's larger 11,700 square foot mansion nearby, having those separate properties in the same gated community must give them plenty of physical space when they need it.
Bianca here, absolutely D, because as Travis pointed out, giving each other space is just as important as resolving a disagreement, and having 2 massive properties in Calabasas definitely makes it easier to take a breather before coming back together to talk things through.
Rachel here, it is a great balance, and looking back at how they celebrated their union with 3 separate ceremonies, from that unlicensed 2 a.m. chapel in Las Vegas in April 22, to the legal signing in Santa Barbara and that lavish Portofino celebration with Dolce & Gabbana featuring the Virgin Mary embroidered on Kourtney's veil, they clearly love making grand statements. But D, as we look closer at how they manage this bustling household, are there other daily routines they have shared?
Well, Rachel, beyond their strict rule about resolving disagreements before calling it a night, Travis actually emphasized that their shared passion for wellness and fitness was the real initial foundation of their connection. Long before they were romantically involved, when they were just neighbors living in Calabasas, they were regular workout buddies and running partners. Travis mentioned that having someone who shared that exact same devotion to a healthy lifestyle was one of the main reasons they grew so close in the first place, and it continues to be a core part of their daily routine together today.
I have to say, Rachel, going for early morning runs together around Calabasas before you are even dating is a pretty serious commitment test. If you can handle seeing someone completely exhausted before coffee, you can probably handle resolving a missed text message about lunch plans before going to sleep. But in all seriousness, having that shared discipline in their personal lives gives them a natural rhythm when it comes to managing everything else they have on their plate.
It really does, Bianca, especially when you consider the sheer scale of the household they are managing across those 2 Calabasas properties. D, when we look at how they integrate their daily routines, how are they handling the practicalities with 6 children living under their roof?
It comes down to incredible organization and creating dedicated spaces for everyone, Rachel. With their 2-year-old son, Rocky 13, who was born back in November 2023 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, plus Kourtney's 3 children, Mason, Penelope, and Rain, and Travis's children, Landon and Alabama, along with his stepdaughter, Atiana de la Hoya, it is a bustling environment. Kourtney actually explained on her family's reality show during a 2025 episode that the entire reason she decided to do a major overhaul on her 11,700 square foot mansion was to make the layout perfectly tailored for their blended family. So while they are residing in Travis's 7-bedroom estate, every single day is structured around giving each child their own space while keeping the family core connected.
And let's be honest, Dee, keeping track of 6 children, home renovations, and a global touring schedule means small misunderstandings are bound to happen on a daily basis. That is precisely why Travis highlighted that simple example about a missed lunch text. When your life is that chaotic, letting a minor miscommunication fester for 24 hours can turn a tiny oversight into a major argument. Taking instant accountability and saying, "I am sorry, I missed your text," keeps the household calm.
That focus on accountability is actually resonating with a lot of people watching us tonight. We just got a message from David in San Diego, who writes, "With 6 kids in the house, if my partner and I didn't clear the air before going to bed, the morning rush would be complete chaos." And David makes a fantastic point, Bianca, because emotional clutter in the morning is the last thing any parent needs.